Everyone to the regular October meeting of the Clark County Board of Education. Let's have everyone stand and observe a moment of silence. And during tonight's moment of silence, I'd like to remember those who have been lost since the last time we met through natural and unnatural means. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start the meeting, I want to recognize Ms. Hillman. You're probably not going to be here when we vote on the consent agenda, but I noticed that you're having a fundraiser for hurricane victims. And I think that's great. I just wanted to point that out publicly, so thank you. And thank you to all your students. First item of business is adoption of the agenda. I have one addition under closed session 33. We have to add another instance for closed session, and that's KRS 61.810, subsection 1, subsection C, discussion of proposed and pending litigation against or on behalf of the public agency. So 2 reasons for closed session. Does anybody else have any other additions or subtractions of the agenda? If not, a motion is to adopt the agenda as amended. I'd like to. Motion by Mr. Peridot.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie absent. The motion is in order to excuse Ms. Ritchie.
I'll move that we excuse Ms. Ritchie from the meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hicks, second by Mr. Peridot. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. All right, and then next up is approval of minutes for the September 19th regular meeting and September 26th working budget meeting. Any changes, comments, additions, subtractions to those? If not, a motion is in order to approve both sets of minutes as presented.
So,
A motion by Ms. Hicks.
Rock, paper, scissors.
So a motion by Ms. Hicks, second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Okay, student and staff recognition. Mr. Christie.
We have some students to recognize this evening. We have with us, Ella Brock, Emma Durance, and Riley Walls. They're present. You all want to come up front? I'd like to say congratulations to these.
Emma won't be able to be.
Emma not here, okay. I'd like to congratulate all 3 of these young ladies. They were being selected to participate in the Kentucky chapter of the American Choral Directors Association All-State Chorus for 5th and 6th grade students. It will be held in Lexington on Friday, November the 3rd, with a concert on Saturday, November the 4th at 11:30 a.m. at the UK Singletary Center. These Baker students were selected for this group from over 700 auditions from across the state. So congratulations and good luck.
Congratulations, that's a big stage.
It is.
Okay. Public comments. Does anyone sign in for public comments?
That only one, Don? It's the only one, okay.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, everybody, and first of all, I just want to thank everyone for allowing the citizens of Winchester, Clark County to be a part of the process. And in the past, I don't think that attitude was that good with the community, but I've seen tremendous improvement, especially with my one-on-one contact with all the individuals of the board and other various schools that I've been associated with. I just really appreciate input, and I understand it takes away from some of your day or whatever, but anything that I've sent you is truly just something that I'm just so passionate about their facilities planning project of the athletic complex. Earlier today, I sent a email out to all the board members, different representatives of different administration positions here in Clark County, and I was just sharing with them what has happened in Winchester for like the last 50 years. And for the last 50 years, I can go back and in these attachments that I sent everyone today, there's a history of groups at various times trying their best to get us a total athletic complex. This has been going on since the early 60s when GRC opened up. And also found a lot of opposition because, as we know, everything is pretty much set on the tax base. And I think for a very extended period of time that we probably just were so thinking so much about the community and the cost that would be to all the taxpayers that we sort of got into a rhythm of just, let's just don't push it very much. And I think Scott might have more info that it's went up gradually in the last decade or so. I think you may have mentioned that. I don't have that data, but anyway, I just wanted to state that back in 1969, in this information I have here, the Board of Education had $39,000, and they were trying to get they had a group of boosters that was trying to get the Cardinal Stadium built, and there were all kind of things, a whole lot of momentum, but the bottom line was no one would ever agree to pay a little bit more of taxes so all the kids of Clark County could have something that now everyone seems to have except us. And I've shared with this group before that this isn't, anything I say is not of personal nature. It's just the facts that what's been going on has been going on for a long time. This isn't a current Board of Education. It isn't a current principal situation, administration situation. It's just a history of Clark County just always settling for a little bit less than what our kids deserve. And there's a lot of people in this room that have lived here most of their life that have witnessed that as well. But it's been a dream of mine for the community of Winchester, Clark County to have a total athletic complex for nearly 50 years. And I shared what I said about the support as well as opposition. I truly appreciate what has been done so far, but the citizens of Clark County have told me the same story over and over and over. If we don't do this project now and do it right, people still doubt that it will ever happen. And we have a history of that, unfortunately. I've lived through this attitude for the last 50 years. We need to send a strong signal to the community that this entire project will be completed. I please ask for everyone up here tonight to consider adding the visiting bleachers back into the project by using some of the surplus funds we have on hand. Last count I heard that we had around $12 million in surplus, and $280,000 for visiting bleachers to totally finish the football complex, to me is a drop in the bucket. So I don't want to use the word challenge because that's sort of a divisive word, but tonight I want to see who's going to step up for the kids of Clark County, who's going to step up and make a motion that we try our best to proceed with this project just like we approved it nearly 2 years ago when I was chairman of the Facilities Planning Committee. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up is Superintendent's Report, Mr. Christie.
Got a few things here to go over real quick. On November 5th, a team of 6 from Advanced Ed will arrive for a 4-day visit for our reaccreditation. On Monday, November the 6th, the team will be in the district office for the day to see district presentation, interviews with the district staff, and they'll interview some board members. We'll let you know who that's going to be as we find out. And then they'll also be interviewing some community members. On Tuesday, the 7th, the team will be in our schools doing classroom walkthroughs, interviews with staff, students, administrators, and parents at the buildings. And on Wednesday, November the 8th, the team will share with the superintendent their recommendations for reaccreditation. So now I will tell you also that part of the process is they're pulling audio, video recordings of 5 board meetings. So they'll be reviewing 5 board meetings, and they just randomly choose dates of board meetings, and we'll have to provide them with video of the board meetings. So they'll be looking at board meetings,
They're gonna get the 5-hour ones, right?
I don't know.
It kept
5 of them,
after
that's gonna take their 3 days probably. But they're staying here in Winchester, so that'll be their homework assignments, go back and watch board meetings. But that's gonna be starting on November the 5th. The RDC had a big literacy and writing day last Thursday. The RDC staff dedicated the school day to read an entire book entitled All the Above with the entire student body. The RDC incorporated writing and math activities along with the event as well. This was an all-day event. The school even provided a themed lunch for the day that went along with the book. It was a very successful day. I apologize again, I was not there. I was caught up in some things here, but there was others from central office that did make it out, and I think some of the board members were out there too. So they had an exceptionally good day with that. I also like to say congratulations to the Robert D. Campbell, to the 8th grade girls basketball team. The 8th grade girls won its first ever conference championship Friday night over Elkhorn Middle. The team won both the regular season and the conference tournament championship this year. Also, congratulations to RDC and the 8th grade football team. RDC won in the second round of the state championship playoffs by beating Scott County on Saturday 24-8. They have now advanced to the Elite 8 in the state of Kentucky and regional championship. RDC will play this coming Saturday on the turf in Lexington at Bryan Station High School at 5 p.m. So good luck to the RDC Cardinals. And I have just one other thing here that I want to pass out, and this one's easier to give to you. It's updates on all the testing that's going to be going on this year, and there's dates and times for each of those. So that's pretty much the year's worth of testing schedules that we've got there. And you'll notice even on the down where it should read K-Prep instead of CREP. Even as late as today, they were still making changes to the testing system. So, but it's at this time it's still currently scheduled to take place the last 14 instructional days of the school calendar. So that's the end.
Any idea when AP testing is? That's usually first week in May, right?
Yeah, it's right pre-season.
How is our, in our the last 14 instructional days, how are the days that we choose determined?
For the last 14 days, have we already selected the Christie's not here, is she?
You count back, the last day of school, you literally count back 14 days with no weekends. It's only instructional days, and that's the day you begin. It's the first 5 days.
The first 5 days, we can't do the last 5?
No, we wish we could. We've even asked to put on demand first, and you have to do it in the order that they give you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then I don't know at the end if we miss a lot of snow days,
Now, I should preface that by saying, since this year is a different
Yeah.
transitional period, if that's something that would like to be addressed with Mr. Christie, we might ask, but traditionally, you start back from 14.
Okay. All right. Any other updates? But there's student living and instructional services second month attendance update, Mr. Holland.
All right, if we can take a look at month 2 up here on the big board. Congratulations once again to Justice Elementary, back-to-back months, so. That's exactly right, somebody get the power from Susan Hillman there. So congratulations there. District attendance, 94.47. Our percentage from August 16th through October 4th, 94.82 as we stand right now. Staff attendance has not been calculated as of yet.
And let's see, ADA versus last year.
ADA versus that, versus.
How about total, not just percentage? Do you have that handy or off the top of your head? If not, you can bring it back next month. then.
Our ADA right now is 94.82, our average daily attendance.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you want to do the comparison from this year to last year, we have that as well. And as we see, some schools took a little bit of a dip. Some schools rose up actually. Had higher numbers of strep as well as stomach bug earlier this year than we've had in years past. So That's our second month attendance.
Okay. All right, any questions for Mr. Holling? Okay, thank you.
Before you move on to your next one, if you want to put in your notes, just quickly, AP testing is May 7th through the 11th, and May 14th through the 18th.
Okay. Second 2 weeks in that.
Yeah.
We're close. Okay, next up is item number 6, overview of District K prep results, Ms. Considine.
Good evening. How are you all this evening?
You're okay.
You have before you tonight, this is KDE's format of public data release. We looked at it, we thought that this was a good, it's a PowerPoint, but it's very, drills down quite a bit, gives a lot of data points for us. I'm sure you've had time, I hope you've had time to look at it. And I would entertain any type of questions, comments, areas that you would like for me to discuss. It is 75 pages, so I don't want to go page by page.
Okay.
But I thought the front of it is KDE's information that's very important for you guys to know what's coming, the transition, all of that good stuff. If you want to go straight to the data, I would tell you that what you probably want to look at is GAP. I think GAP is where we're going to probably, need to put a little emphasis
Okay.
on. Or a lot
Or a
of
lot.
emphasis. Depends on how you look at it.
Okay.
So I'll entertain whatever you would like to do.
Judy, I'll defer to you.
Well, we all know what I'm gonna talk about, so
Yes.
maybe we better wait. We're
All
gonna
right.
talk about the abysmal writing scores.
Right.
So maybe something more positive would be better to start with.
Okay. Gap is a big issue, and I think that's something that's incumbent for the district to really attend to. If you look at the high school numbers are very shocking. I mean, it's almost, I hate to say bimodal distribution, but we're kind of getting there. And so I'm really concerned that a significant number of kids are being left behind at the high school. So I think that needs to be addressed. So the other thing, when I look at GAP, I mean, free and reduced lunch is considered GAP, but if you look at the free and reduced numbers in our school, the majority of children in some of our schools are free and reduced lunch. So that's really no longer a gap. I mean, that reflects the overall performance of the school in general.
63%
Yeah.
district-wide.
So if you look at those numbers, they're pretty similar. So gap to me means English as second language, African American, disabilities, those sorts of things. So
Whenever you would see an asterisk for GAP, that meant that we didn't have enough to give us a population. If you saw a dash, it meant that we didn't have any at all.
Okay.
So I hope that kind of clarifies that for you, for GAP.
in general, can you comment on growth versus last year? Was growth where you wanted it to be? If you look at the overall numbers, I think the district has grown somewhat. The state seems to be catching up to us a little bit
Yes.
faster. We've been ahead of the state for a couple of years.
Yes, and it seems like now that we've, maybe, I don't want to say that we're kind of just standing on our laurels, but we need to do some things differently in order to see some growth. I'm really concerned about math because I think we were seeing a improvement after we adopted a new curriculum, but I think we've kind of plateaued and now we're on a decline. So that is something that I'm probably going to pursue a math audit. To me, that they can come in and they can look at the instruction in the classroom, they can look at our curriculum, and we do it through the Kentucky Center for Mathematics, and it's they love to come in and just kind of take a little overview. So that's probably what I'm going to pursue next.
Okay.
I think with reading, we are going to continue to see growth in reading. It's improving.
Yeah.
So I feel good about that, but math is where I'm really concerned.
Okay. All right. How about just in general ways to drive growth forward in the district?
I think that it would be helpful if we have district presence out and be in classrooms more. I know that I have been very tied to my desk lately with the accreditation presentation that's coming up, that takes a lot of time and effort. So right now, I don't have a good grasp of knowing what's going on in classrooms. But after November 8th, you will see me out and about a lot more.
Okay.
I kind of want, we had the facilitators, and then we didn't bring 2 of those positions back, and we have one that's working with Campbell and Concrete, because we are trying to really look at the instructional piece in those buildings and provide lots of support. I really trust our principals, and they know what they need to do when it comes to reading and math. And if you compare, and we're not supposed to last year, we did really well. I mean,
Right.
pretty much about the same. We didn't see any big dips except for writing, and we'll talk about that. And then Algebra 2. But the reason Algebra 2 is a big dip is because we tested 600 students.
Right.
Because we're trying to phase in a different progression of algebra, like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and then geometry. So I think that will probably affect a little bit. It will not let me, in the data sets, it will not let me drill down to see what our sophomores versus our sitting juniors that took the Algebra 2 test, how they score. That's kind of a fault with the data that we receive.
Okay.
But I think that would be valuable information for us.
Okay. Before I defer to Judy, how about some specific strategies we're going to use for gap reduction in the district?
I think we're going to have to do a lot of progress monitoring at the school level with our administrators, and maybe not have them come here, but maybe we come to you guys so that we can attend PLCs. We can actually listen in on the conversations that are occurring, because they are occurring. They talk about it weekly of what are we doing with our groups and how are we meeting those needs. Sometimes maybe we're not getting that information back from those weekly meetings like we should in order to be able to provide support, because if you think about it, that's a lot of meetings going on.
Right.
But if we schedule it or we're invited, I think that would be a way to figure out what's happening in the classroom and how can we differentiate or change some of our strategies or look for new strategies. The math audit may say that maybe the curriculum is not right for us. I don't know. I mean, we chose the math curriculum. We have had intensive training. It's very frustrating that we don't see the positive results from it.
Okay.
So that's, I think, in a nutshell, what it's got to have to happen. And we had a math audit probably about 9 years ago, and it's time for another one.
Okay.
So,
All right. Ms.
Do you
Hayes.
ever have a writing audit?
well, those kind of went away with the portfolios. We were audited every year, if you think about writing portfolios. And I will tell you, Ms. Hicks, that is part of the problem. If you have an area where you're not, and I don't know how to say this, monitoring on a yearly basis. When we had writing portfolios and they were at 4th grade, from K to 4th grade, we really did do a lot of writing because we didn't want it to fall on the 4th grade teachers. Part of our grade configuration, with 5th grade being in a separate building, the lead up to that, there's no conversation between 5th grade teachers and the 4th grade teachers because they're not in the building. You had those conversations. You walked down the hallway when you had K through 5, and you could say, hey, tell me how we can help you with writing.
Our grade configuration plays a little bit of a part in that, in that the writing just says that it's at the 5th grade. And so K through 4, those 5th grade teachers don't have that contact, like Brenda said, with those teachers before them.
There's so many pluses with the 5-6 school, but that's probably, assessment is probably one of the more challenging issues.
Social studies the same way.
But yet, the 8th grade scores were lower than 5th grade.
Mhm.
I mean, when you look at these scores, when we only have between 14% proficient up to the highest of 47.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the number of kids that are not proficient in a basic skill. And this doesn't seem to, no one seems to think that this is a problem other than Judy, who's been harping on it for 17 years.
Right.
And we really haven't seen much difference from 17 years ago to now.
No.
I just believe that we need to be very intentional about getting a writing program. And I understand, you know, site-based councils get to do their own thing about choosing. Last year, principals stood here in their annual student achievement reports and talked about writing, that they were using, as I remember, the writing component that is
And
with
journeys.
Right, with the language arts program that we had adopted. But if that is the case, it needs to change, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know the reasons, but I would like to know the reasons.
I
We
would-
can't continue like this and do our kids justice.
Right.
We cannot.
Writing, and if you're a good writer, and I think that you probably are, you know it takes time.
Yeah.
It is not something that you can do spur of the moment and then provide the feedback. And I do think that that is probably a crutch that we always lean on when we want to discuss our writing scores, is that we don't have enough time in the day to get to that, because we do teach a lot and we're required to cover a lot, you know. And writing it's labor intensive
Yes.
for
And
adults
Apparently.
and students.
Yes, and, you know, there's the old saying that you can't teach what you don't know. Are we in that situation in our district? Do our teachers not know writing, therefore they are not comfortable teaching writing, therefore they?
I don't know if I would agree with that, but I do feel like that sometimes teachers who may have had a bad writing experience growing up do not feel comfortable in not really teaching writing, but providing the accurate feedback to get students to be better writers. Children will write every day if you ask them to. If you build it into your daily schedule, the big thing about having children write is you do have to follow up with that, because we're never going to improve as writers if we don't receive the feedback. And that type of feedback is not a multiple choice, quick answer, show me, does everybody have
Right.
C? It's not something you can put on a whiteboard. It is like a writing workshop, and it's very difficult to find the time in the day. And the schools purchased Lucy Calkins, we've talked about that. That is very labor
Purchasing
intensive.
and using it are two different things.
Right. And then we went with Journeys, and Journeys does have a writing component. If they do the writing every day that's in Journeys, you should see an improvement.
Yeah, I thought we were gonna see that this year, and we very much did not. And even in the language mechanics, which have a strong influence on writing, I mean, not very many grades were tested there,
Right.
but,
And unfortunately, this year, it is on the cutting floor. Language mechanics will not be, it will be field tested, but it is a budget cut. Sorry. But I mean, that has nothing to do with us, but I mean, that's at the state level. And, you know, we try very hard to roll out a lot of writing incentives for teachers. You know, the Kentucky Writing Project is out there. We encourage people to go.
do they?
We do have some occasional takers on it, but it's not something that we've required. You know, it depends on where the board wants to go with it and how much you want to look at writing as a program. I mean, we can, you know,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to say it, perhaps forcefully enough, but we cannot continue not to serve kids in this basic skill. We can't. They need writing. And, you know, we talk about challenging our students. Okay, well, let's challenge our teachers as well, you know, even if challenge is not a great word. at least let's encourage or go beyond encouraging. Because we have to see some difference here. How can we do that?
Well, I wish I knew because I've been in the district a long time and writing is always, I mean, when we had writing portfolios, we really did see
We did.
a lot of improvement in writing.
And
Look at
people
the amount-
write and
look-
complained.
But look at
But-
the amount of time that was put into those too, and I think you could still see that if you spent those same amounts of time, but time is of the essence in a day. What do you take out? That's what principals are faced with every day. They stand at this podium and answer about math, reading, and all these other things, social studies, now science.
But the thing is with writing, that can be incorporated into every class. We used to do the writing across the curriculum.
Yeah, we always had
What
a science
trainings do we
piece.
need
We
to
always
do
had a
so
social
that
studies, right.
That everyone, yeah, and
teachers feel comfortable doing that?
Right.
You know, in the professional learning communities within each school, do they share strategies? Do they talk about, when they see these sorts of results, do they develop a strategy for addressing it?
They do, and we actually talk about it at our grade level meetings, because a lot of the elementary, where they're in 4 different buildings, you really need some cohesive writing instruction, so that when I'm working on a piece and I'm at Shear and I move to Strode, you know, that has to continue. That is a hard thing to pick up. It's real easy to pick up where they are in reading and math, but with writing, it's much more difficult to take on at a district level. And I'm not using it as an excuse, but I think we can give them the resources, but then we just have to showcase classrooms that do an excellent job. I know right off the top of my head, Mr. Rose has one, a classroom that, I mean, they write every day. But that teacher feels that writing is very, very important, and she's very comfortable about that. And we have people go and observe and visit, but then when you go back, it becomes overwhelming sometimes, because then I have to teach reading, I have to teach math, I have to teach science, I have to teach social studies. And what we do is elementary, we kind of compartmentalize and we put them in their little folders, and we really need to try to, across the curriculum, you know. If you're going to be a good reader, you should be a good writer. They go hand in hand. And sometimes we don't really emphasize that. We want them to be good readers because we feel that reading is very important. But like today, all I did all day long was write. I mean, all day long.
That's kind of what I do every day.
Now, I mean, it's the nature of the beast for my job, because I do a lot of reports but you know, my husband doesn't really do a lot of writing. He's a farmer. So, you know, I mean, if I ask him to sit down and write, you know, he'll say, can you write this up for me? Because, you know, he's not going to spend a lot of time on it. So we have to develop within the building that love of writing, that it's important, that, you know, it's going to be an asset for you. And I don't know if that's what we're doing. At the university levels, I don't think they're writing as much as they used to. I know I've got one in college, and I'm like, how many papers do you have this semester? None. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. And I mean, he's written one big, and he's a senior at UK, one big paper. Yes, he had a major fit over it because it was a lot. But a lot of them are just doing tests. It's just easier. So it's not off our plate. We know. And, you know, you give me some guidance as how you would like curriculum and instruction to go with it, and we'll take it on.
Could we get some numbers on cost of implementing a writing program?
Sure.
You know, much like we did when we were looking at a language arts program.
Right.
And
we want
just-
something that's going to, I mean, the beauty about Journeys is that it does have it in there. And you know, maybe that's what it becomes a focus when we are in the district, out in the district, in classrooms that we don't really want to see Reading and math, we want to see your writing classes. I know that we are providing lots of support at Concrete right now. So, you know, Julie will be able to talk a little bit about that next week with our facilitator. That is really, we have a great writing facilitator. I would encourage the principals, if you want to, you know, have her come in, talk to your teachers about writing, because she can make it manageable. It is a big task, but if you think you can tackle it and you have support, and that's what we want to be able to do, is provide the support. But yes, I can do some investigating to see what's out there. Lucy is very labor intensive, and so, you know, we have Journeys, which is probably pretty easy to teach. And then you have Lucy. So maybe we need, you know, maybe Journeys, they don't feel like is enough meat. I don't know. I can kind of do a little poll, figure out.
Well,
and-
are these scores the result of Journey's instruction?
I don't know, possibly.
I'm not impressed with Journey's then, for the writing component at least.
Right.
I mean, and years ago, when teachers were assigned whatever they were going to teach, and when computers first came on, did we know how to teach computers? No, but what did we do? We took courses, we had training,
Right.
because we had to help kids learn that skill.
One thing we could do is we could do maybe an incentive to attend the Kentucky Writing Project. You know, the thing, we pay for it, but maybe there is something else. There's another incentive, maybe another monetary incentive that we could look at that says if you'll attend, you know, you'll get a $2,000 stipend. Because I think if they go to the writing project, they will use it because they become immersed in it. I mean, we may have to start being very creative and think outside the box. And how can we get it to catch on? Yes.
I don't usually like to do this, but this is what, I'm a former English teacher. I share the same passion. I think it's the most important subject that there is, writing and the ability to comprehend the written word, voice your opinion with it. To me, there's no greater thing that you're going to learn in school. I think this is the one curriculum that I really think about, though. This is the curriculum that we are battling in today's world. Because math, social studies, and science, they don't have the same issues that writing does because of these stupid things right here. These things
Yes.
in computers.
Yes.
And tweeting limits your characters. You've got
And the jargon.
Instagram, absolutely. You've got Instagram, you've got all this. So we have to come up with a solution. But I think one thing too is, it's kind of when you're dealing with certain behaviors in kids. When you try to correct them through the school day, but you know that the problems are at home, you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back type of thing. I think in some senses, that's what we've got to kind of look at too and say, this is what we're battling, because they're limiting the characters, punctuation is no longer there, capitalization is no longer there, sentence structure is no longer there. So when we teach it, and then they go back to those same venues, so I'm sorry, I don't usually do that.
No,
That's
you
just
make
something
it a
that's very-
community issue like we
something-
tried to do with attendance.
Yeah.
It is, that's not, that's.
The other thing I would like to add, and I know you might not want to hear this, but I think you need to add, go look at some school systems that are doing a good writing program, a couple of them, and then get the input from whoever the administrators are, and try to develop a writing program within your thing, because it sounds like to me, we're just all over the map here. So you need to kind of go visit some schools that have a successful writing program and see what you want, and then bring it back and she can present it to you all, and then present it to the principals or whatever, and let them go with her. But, you know, I think that needs to happen and see, because you just kind of hodgepodge in here, it looks like to me.
We visited, and we bring it back, but it has to happen at the school level.
Yes.
There's only so much I can do. And so, you know, we offer trainings, we offer ways that teachers can get additional support. We took a couple of teams to Royal Springs, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not on that we're not trying, but it is a difficult task in that you have to have the buy-in in the classroom. If you don't have the teacher buy-in, it doesn't matter what program you have, it doesn't matter how many school visits you go on, the teacher has to want to make it a priority.
Okay, do these scores not say something to teachers?
I would hope so. Now, I don't know how schools have rolled out the data yet, but they should be able to share that with you, coming up with student achievement reports.
You know, the questions I'm gonna be asking next week, guys.
That's the first question on my list, so. What are you doing to improve writing in your
What
school?
are you going to do
That's every
differently?
school in this district. Second question is going to be, what are you doing to reduce your gap? Third question is going to be, what are you doing to maintain growth? I'll email those out to you all. So those are the three things I would clarify. So I have a couple comments. Number one, this district has spent upwards of $8 million in HVAC improvements for schools and is fixing to spend $20 million, give or take, on an athletic complex. I think we have, or should be, devoting some resources to developing a serious writing program in the district. So, one. Two, our board superintendent goals we just approved last meeting. Number three, all students at grades 4, 6, and 8 on grade level for reading, math, and we added writing to that.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so this is the blueprint for success in our district. Okay? We've chosen, we would like to stress writing, it's important. So, what nature is your son, just out of curiosity?
Ag Econ,
Okay. All
which,
right. So he can probably do the spreadsheet like nobody's
yeah,
business. Okay.
he can. But I would like for him to, I think that, and I don't know, anybody else have anybody at the university? I don't think I wrote the whole time I was in
Right.
college. I mean, everything was a paper. And, back then we had those blasted typewriters, and the backspace to autocorrect. I mean, my gosh. But I don't think that maybe it's just his field, but I don't hear kids really having to write a lot.
I got one at EKU now, but I don't think she's had it. She's gonna end up leaving there graduating here with 24, 27 hours. I'm not aware of a paper she's had to write yet.
No, I see the issue with writing because in the third and fourth years, they're me, I instruct them now. They have to have some writing skills. And sometimes we have to remedy that before we can get on the points.
Right. And I do think that it's not just a Clark County issue. If it was, then I think it is a state issue. If you look, the writing scores are not that great
No.
all over. So, who knows? Maybe with the new accountability, no one knows what it's gonna look like.
But even as poor as the scores are in the state, we're even below the state average.
Yes, I
So,
know. Right. But that means that there were probably people that scored lower than us. If you think of people scoring higher, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's dismal. It's society. It's a lot that we're battling as a community. I mean, think about it. The kids aren't having to write complete sentences because of their communication skills is greatly accepted through a text.
My 2 cents worth, and I will
Yes.
be brief, is I agree with
Really?
Mr. Wilson. We need to see what other schools, what they're doing and what works. And now my perspective, I've got kids at a liberal arts school and they break them down like the Marines first couple of years and they learn.
Yes,
And-
we did that we partnered with Royal Springs, and, because they do have really good scores, and it's all about paragraph structure, and it is kind of you don't want to say it's a cookie cutter, kind of like pattern, but it really is, especially for novice writers. They have to have something, somewhere to start.
We should look at a program and see how effective it's been in the real world we all live in,
Okay.
as opposed to just believing some
Right.
consultant, because sometimes they can be rascals.
Sure, and they always are trying to sell something.
Yes, that's what we're getting
Yes.
around to.
Judy, how did you learn to write?
diagramming sentences with Marie Counts in 3rd grade.
All right. That's how I learned, and my teacher is AP Shelley, and she was in 6th grade, and she scarred me for life, but I know how to write. Does anybody diagram sentences anymore? Is that hopelessly old-fashioned?
No, it's really not in the standards.
I mean, that's
You know.
where I learned sentence structure. Even there, up on the shelf, do you remember the shelf?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I respect Ms. Hicks, she's an excellent writer.
Yes.
Since I've been on the board, my writing has gotten a lot better. I remember when I sent stuff to you for editing, it came back red pencil a lot, and now not so much. Semicolon here or there, and I'll just claim artistic license here or there. But no, it's a, and the other thing is, I wonder about, we are doing a good job and our kids are college and career ready, and we're sending them off to college and not a lot of them are doing that well, and not too many of them are graduating. And they're having a hard time once they get there. And I have to wonder whether, an inability to write for whatever reason, from our district, from Twitter, from whatever the issue, from society, wherever the issue is coming from, does that have something to do with it?
Or it could be understanding the written word.
So,
Because at that level, there's a lot
Right.
of reading.
yes.
And if they're not doing a lot of reading, then when they get to university, it does catch up with them. Because that's one thing that you kind of see when you talk to students that are transitioning, and they're like, all these readings and keeping up with it. They may not be writing papers, but you definitely have to read in order to understand what the lecture is going to be about and have an understanding of that lecture. So, it all goes in hand. Are we preparing them for the next level, whether it be just general life or at the university and college?
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
Any other questions from Ms. Considine? All right, thank you, Brenda. All right, next up is, under Student Support Services, item number 7, consider approval of second reading of policy 04.61, gift, grant, or devise. Ms. Ellis.
This is just bringing back for the second reading the school activity funds policy where you all, you updated the number 2 item just to include that every month following that bank statements would be submitted, and then the new donation policy. So it's just the second reading
Okay.
of that.
No changes from the first policy?
No.
Do we get any feedback, positive or negative? Okay.
No.
Any other discussion amongst board members? If not, a motion is to consider approval of the second reading to policy 04.61, gift, grant, or devise as presented.
I move that we approve the second reading to policy 0.61, gift, grant, or devise.
Motion by Ms. Hicks,
Second.
second by Mr. Farrow. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. All right, next up is item number 8, consider approval of the memorandum of agreement between the National Youth Advocate Program and Clark County Board of Education School-Based Services. Ms. Mann.
Good evening. I've submitted the memorandum of agreement in regards to the National Youth Advocacy Program, and would like your consideration of approval.
Can you describe for us what it will do, how it will enhance our services, and does it replace any services that are currently being provided or enhance them?
It does not replace, and it will enhance. This organization is a new one to our district, but the face of the organization is not new. It's Miss Michelle Sames. She is formerly with Bluegrass, but now is with this new organization. This organization provides services to families. As you know, that Clark County is a big recipient of foster care, and so they work with providing therapeutic foster services for those families. They expand to community mental health services. They provide outpatient, community-based services, and can provide services within their schools. They currently are working in contandem with Mountain Comprehensive Care, and they are having a common conversation as far as for students that might be of need, who can provide the most intensive services for them.
Okay. Are there any areas which they're going to provide kind of niche care? I noticed they mentioned trauma-informed care, which is
Actually,
pretty common. That's a new thing in psychiatry these days.
Actually, sir, Michelle has actually presented twice to either, first time it was counselors, the second time was even to a group of special education teachers, trying to educate our staff on how to handle students that deal with trauma in their lives.
Okay. All right. Ms. Hawkins, do you see any issues with this agreement?
Dr. Kudak, I didn't actually look at it word for word. I'd be glad to do that and offer you a written opinion on it.
Okay. actually wasn't much there to opine on, but.
I will share that this agreement is very similar in nature
Right, yeah, to the other two.
so that way the language would not be having discrepancies
Okay,
in the comparison.
that was my impression, so. Okay. Other questions from Ms. Mann? Or further discussion? I would say that the psychiatric needs of our students are great, and anything we can do to help them is important, so.
That is an expanding need in our community and in our schools.
And probably will continue to be, unfortunately, so.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, a motion is in order to consider approval of the memorandum of agreement between the National Youth Advocate Program and Clark County Board of Education School-Based Services. So moved. Motion by Mr. Peredo.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next up is Mr. Holland with item 8.
All right. We decided to, based on some feedback that we have received, to form the calendar committee sooner this year. And based off of some changes we've made the last couple of years where we had kind of put the calendar in the hands of the board, taking it back to the public and so forth, the language for the calendar committee changes next year. So what we did was we formed a group of individuals based on the requirement for next year. And those folks came together in a couple of meetings, and with that, we took the requirements that are coming as a mandate for next year and so forth, and we decided to create, our calendar committee created 3 calendars, of which you have been presented those 3 options.
Okay. Can you go into a little bit more detail, or Judy, who sits on the calendar committee, can go into some detail about each of those options?
Sure,
And
either way.
Go ahead.
Okay.
as
Option
part of the
one-
statute says that we have to hear the calendar committee's recommendations, and then I'm going to ask for the recommendations of the superintendent.
Correct.
And the statute also says you go to the next meeting on it this one.
Yes, that's the one thing that I did want to point out, as well as that the language in there said that this can't be something that is passed the first time that you hear. It has to be a
Right.
two-process situation here. Okay, so with option 1, if we can take a look at it. Option 1 has opening day on August the 15th for staff. The first day of school for students is August the 16th. That gives us Labor Day, September the 3rd. Fall break would be 2 days in October, October the 11th and the 12th on option 1. In November, we have a teacher workday, which is a day that cannot be flexed. This is, I want to point out, something that was consistent in all 3 of the calendars, to have that day that's there. One of the reasons that it was presented there was some feedback that we had gotten from the committee, and also from some other folks. That ensures that the data is in and forces folks to actually get in and analyze that data, having probably a few weeks after it's come out, people digest it, and then the staffs really can break it down. That would be before Election Day on November the 6th. On this calendar, you also see that there is a 3-day holiday break for Thanksgiving, taking 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of November. Going to December, we would go, with this calendar, it would be the 17th, 18th, and 19th would be instructional days. The 20th would be the first day for winter vacation, coming back on the 3rd of January. If you'll notice, there's a P there, that's a professional development day. One of the things that we had talked to, one change that it will be consistent basically is swapping the teacher work day with the professional development day. The thought process there was that that gives those staff who are hired late an opportunity to have PD that's set up in the school year, as opposed to saying, hey, everything's been done, you're on your own to kind of find that. So we wanted to provide that option. And PD days can be flexed, so you can work those in the evenings ahead of time. So for those staff who have already completed that, that would be a day that could go to them as well. January the 21st is Martin Luther King Day. February the 18th, President's Day. Here will be something that will switch depending on what calendar that you look at. you'll see that March the 25th through the 29th on this particular calendar would be spring break. We have no days in April, and then coming back in May, it would be May the 21st is an election day. The 24th, at that point, would be the last day for students, closing day the 28th. That's option one. If we move to option two, see a few differences here. Opening day is going to be very similar. We're going to see opening day moves back a day, so opening day becomes August 14th. First day for students is August the 15th, taking Labor Day, of course, on that same day. This is one change that you'll notice. The committee wanted to give the option and the opportunity to have a full week for fall break, and that would be October 15th through the 19th. Point out what that does when you add days in. One of those days that would be different is a starting date that's sooner than option one, and then I'll show you where those other days are absorbed. If you go to November, teacher work day stays the same. We have election day, that we are a polling place, and next year will be a major election, so we'll need to take that. Still 3 days for November. And then if you take a look, those days are going to be absorbed by actually going the 17th through the 21st, which helps to pick up those extra days that we're given at fall break. Starting to point out that the first official day with no students would be Christmas Eve on the 24th. That would then run through the same situation into the 3rd day, the 3rd of January, coming back with a PD day on the 2nd for the same reasons. 21st, once again, Martin Luther King Day. The 18th of February is for President's Day. March has no days off, so we flip-flop March and April. April then takes spring break. That would be the 1st through the 5th of April as spring break. And basically, they mirror thereafter. Election Day on May 21st, last day of students on the 24th, closing day on the 28th. Now, the third option, one of the reasons I believe that the committee was anxious to create at least a calendar option is this is going to be the year that if you take the Monday closest to the 26th, at that point in time, it changes the number of days that you have to attend and so forth, and that's where you get into the new legislative laws. So with that, we had a couple of folks that were very persistent who wanted to create option 3, and so this is the option that we'll present to you here. This would be beginning on the 21st, it would be 3 consecutive teacher work days. Teachers would have to report. Opening day for students, opening day for staff would then be on the 24th of August. First day for students would be the 27th of August. There would be the 3rd is still going to be going to be a Labor Day. No fall break for this particular calendar because of the late start that was discussed. Some folks, I think, pushed and said, if you're going to start it later, don't take a fall break. On November, you'll see teacher work day and election day is the same. You'll notice a change here on this calendar, and your PD day is actually going to be that Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So for those staff who have completed their professional development hours, they would be eligible to flex that day. Staff who have not at that point in time would have the opportunity to work at that particular date. You'll notice that this particular calendar for the winter vacation matches option 2. It begins on Christmas Eve, the 24th, runs through with no option the 2nd, and coming back on the 3rd as we switch PD from January the 2nd back into November. Still have Martin Luther King Day off, President's Day off. This calendar takes spring break, the 25th of March through the 29th of March. No days in April, and then we get back to the same situation we were in before. Election Day on the 21st of May, last day of students the 24th, closing day for teachers the 28th. So those are the 3 options that were created by the calendar committee.
And that third option just has the 173.
Correct. That is the one, the first two have 176 instructional days. That is the reason why, to go back to that, that's the reason why, based on teacher contracts, if you shorten the number of instructional days, the teacher days still need to be in there, and therefore, with this calendar, those 3 teacher work days are built in at the very beginning of school.
Are we going to add specific days that would be considered makeup days? Because I think sometimes families who are making plans just look at that last day without regard to add-on makeup days.
I would have, if the board didn't mention, I'll be honest with you, I think that that's been something that's been helpful. I know that's something that you all have done, especially when you have had the control to create, then send it for the vote. That's something that sort of has been there from the get-go in terms of creating when are going to be those specific days and that we're taking a look at. And so that's, at least for the last couple of years specifically, that has been in there. I think that should.
These calendars reflect the makeup days. They're noted there's makeup days.
They're noted, but we always leave it for board discretion. That's what we wanted to make.
The makeup days will be finalized for the board, but on each of the calendars, it shows, starting after the day after closing day, you've got 8 makeup days scheduled here.
Oh, okay. I've got the older version.
Yeah.
Not printed one.
No, the newer one, we went ahead and put
Okay,
those together.
thank you. I have it here on the screen, but I'm looking at my written copy. Thank you.
What was the thinking behind on option 2, moving spring break back a week?
I'll defer to Jen. This is the one because I had to go to a visitation. Greatly appreciate, and I was going to make a comment about that and say thank you for being able to run it. She does calendars very well, so while I was in Pikeville damaging my car, she was able to run that, and I greatly appreciate that.
The committee wanted to, there were several of them that wanted the later date or whatever by having it in April for possible better weather. You know, March is still a little cool, sunny days, but if you move it by 1 week, it's possible for warmer, sunnier days. A lot of our families travel, you know, south to the beaches or whatnot. That would just give them 1 more week for the weather to be prettier. Also, when you look and count the weeks or whatever on option 2, it would give you the same amount of weeks as far as like from days off to days off by having it that week, if April, the first week of April, excuse me.
Some of the teacher members of the committee indicated that kids really get tired and teachers really get tired with that long month from President's Day, or from, not President's Day, but our day, I guess President's Day.
President's Day.
Through until the 1st of April, that's a really, really long time.
We used to have KEA Day that forced us
Yes.
out. When they took that and gave that capability for us to go on that, that has created, that one day seemed to make such a big difference. Taking that out, it has created a long stretch there.
So that was the reasoning on some of that, on moving it to March, giving an option there for the end of March week.
Well, what options do we have in front of us? We just choose one of the 3, or can we say, golly gee, I like option 2, but I'd like to move spring back a week, or what parameters are we operating?
D, all the above. Actually, I've gone back and reread that wording 100 times to make sure. The way that is worded is, we form a committee, and it actually is the same as what we did before. And I set the stage, and Ms. Hicks heard, and Ms. Winburn heard as well, and Ms. Hillman, people that were on the committee. I let them know, we are making a suggestion to the board. We're making suggestions to the board. At this stage, once we present this to the board, anything can happen. You can take this and say, you know what, this is what the committee wanted. We're going to put it out there in whatever form that you want. We can say we like this option. We're going to create 2. That's up to you. And they were notified of that. I think they were frustrated in the past, of feeling like, well, they don't listen. And I tried to set the stage and say that's not what we're doing. We're just creating this, and we're giving options and suggestions. Where it goes from there is totally up to you all.
Well, statute says we need to hear your recommendations. So did the committee prefer one over the other, or they all recommended equally?
Pretty much recommended equally, weren't they?
Yeah.
Each calendar kind of represents different groups of our committee,
Right.
would you not think,
Yes,
Ms. Hicks?
yes.
So when we were building it, you know, there were some that were strongly for a fall break, so we built a calendar with a full week fall break. There was another group that was adamant for taking spring break first week of April, so we built a calendar with one. So we took each each kind of grouping of our committee and devised 3 options to satisfy all of their.
And one thing that
There
we
was.
were very clear with on the very first night is this, we got to get away from adult agendas, and this is what's best for kids. It's not what's best for adults, it's what's best for kids. So when we look at these options and we're going to build these calendars, it's not about, hey, what's best for our vacation schedules. It's about what's best for kids and how are we maximizing learning. And so that was stressed on the first day that we met.
Mr. Christie, do you have a recommendation on list of 3?
It's just, any recommendation I'd have would be personal, and that's,
The law says I have to ask for it, so I'm
no,
asking.
I do not.
I do not want to get locked up over a school
I do
calendar.
not have a specific recommendation. I have some that I like better than others, but I'm not going to make a recommendation of a calendar committee.
I do too. I think that there are several, just feedback that we've gotten initially, once folks could see, there were several things that we would hear, just quick little snippets of, well, I like this calendar, boy, I don't like this calendar, and those types of things. So people have sort of shown their opinion.
I like 1 and 2 in that both equal semesters. I like that. You know. Personally, I do think there needs to be a fall break in there for a day or 2. I'm not sure about a week, but a day or 2 I think is. I personally like the fall break on the Thursday and Friday instead of the Friday and Monday.
Especially Monday before a board meeting.
Yeah.
That was challenging, actually, yeah.
You know, they all end at the same time, barring snow days.
Other discussion?
I'm not a big fan of option 3 that has the starting us out with.
Yeah, that was the carrot and stick thing that the state proposed. What's the carrot?
Because the teachers have a contract, they have to work so many days.
Right, no,
And
that's been the
because
issue
it
the whole
shortens the
time.
school year,
That's-
this last one shortens the school year
Yes.
by some days, so the teachers still have to
Instructional
work.
days.
Yeah,
We
this
could
is-
work on writing those 3 days.
Yeah, this is the one that, for those, going back to what we had kind of talked about, this is the one by my calculations, I think a district can, and not us, but I think a district, if they so choose, could theoretically drop to about 155 instructional days and get away with that based on if they start that Monday closest to the 26th. So that's to
And a
build
couple of
commerce.
people on the committee wanted us to schedule one with 155 with the minimum instructional days.
Are we a minimum district?
Some people thought we were.
Ms. Hicks and I fought tooth and nail to get
Yes.
173 before they were finally a little bit of
Yeah.
appeased by that. But they didn't understand the impacts of our students not being in school for 176, and we kept reminding them that we're here for the kids.
Okay.
And Jennifer did a fabulous job of facilitating the meeting where you were not present. She did a fabulous job.
Okay. All right. If I'm reading the statute correctly, it forbids us from bidding on this tonight.
Correct.
So we need to promulgate these calendars and get these out to the district for purposes of receiving feedback. And we will come to a decision.
In the form of a vote like we've done in the past, but.
You can do that. That would be non-binding, but, you know, that's something.
Right, I understand that.
That's a straw poll, but.
Is that?
I want to point out too, before we get to the next meeting, to kind of go back, because you had raised a point, we get into that situation where we say, we lock a computer down, so you can vote one time on a computer and it locks it down, therefore, at that point in time, we're limiting the number of people that could get on and vote multiple times. Conversely, and this is where we run into the problem, is we've polled our classified staff and certain staff across the district, but we've seen a lot of our classified staff who use certain computers, the same ones. And so whoever gets to the computer first kind of locks it up, and then at that point in time, that particular computer can't be used, as opposed to how we can't really lock a person necessarily out. So with this, we'll say it ahead of time, that this would be the sort of thing, if we do the poll, that there could be multiple people that vote multiple times and that sort of thing.
Right.
But
I've taken the poll with a grain of salt.
Yes, it doesn't become a scientific.
Correct.
If the
measure.
poll says 90% one thing, then I know that's the, you know, the employees of the district have kind of spoken, but if it's pretty close, then, you know, it's more of a judgment call, so.
just want to point that out.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, thank you, Mr. Holland. Next up is item number 10, review consideration of possible approval of bids and alternate bids for the GRC Athletic Complex and Performance Gymnasium.
Good evening. We brought this item before the board this afternoon to offer you an opportunity to engage in discussion with your architects and your construction managers and your fiscal agents and such about the current status of your bid package for the GRC Athletic Complex and Gymnasium. We went to bid, as you are well aware, the past Tuesday on the 10th. We received bids for 13 bid packages with some combo bid packages and the 8 alternates that the board chose to go to bid with. Over the course of the current week, we've had some things transpire that are very relevant to your consideration. We had a contractor that withdrew their bid. We had a contractor we needed to research because we knew very little about their company. We had another one that reported to us that they underbid and such. So we forwarded to you this afternoon some information that represents the most updated and accurate information we have regarding your bids and each package and each contractor. I've made copies of that for you, and tonight, if it pleases the board, we'd like to have Ron Merle from Ross Tron Architects kind of review that document with you and give you an idea of where we're at currently with your bids and the alternate bids and our combo bids and how all those play and interact. And if it pleases the board, we have Joe Nance here as well that could, based on that discussion, if it interests you, to talk to you about your possible bonding capacity as a result of your directions or what a potential BG1 may look like. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Ron Merle and let him review these most recent documents with you.
Okay, we're, I guess, passing this around, and some of you have seen this, I guess, in the email, and I would share that it was not necessarily my intention that the board tried to dissect all of that what we've been spending the last week doing just in a few hours here before the board meeting, but that we would have this opportunity to review where we stand. This is kind of, I think, in my mind, a continuation of or kind of finally having the special called meeting that we talked about, maybe trying to have right after the bid opening. This now is kind of my attempt here to kind of walk you through what has changed since October the 10th. And so I want to begin, with your indulgence here, with just what we're calling Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 being the competition gym and athletic complex, a kind of a final full bid tab at the very top of that Exhibit 1. And what we've done is let me do this. I've got a couple extra copies. If you would get this to Mr. Christie and maybe and I've got 5 copies there, or 6. You can get those to the board members. It'll be a little easier to read, maybe. It's just all just so kind of in color there. That'll be helpful. A little larger. I know my eyes appreciate a little bit larger text.
Just bigger.
Okay, so same thing that you were sent in the email. So let me just kind of begin, and I'll try to go through this and then stop for questions. Bid Pack 1, Randall Davies, Allen Company, no changes. What we did was we highlighted Bid Pack 2 for general trades, Bid Pack 3 for masonry, and actually Bid Pack 7
because that was a combo with Rising Sun that ended up being the lowest bid with the combination. Okay, so that's not any different than what you saw at the bid opening. Bid pack 4 for structural is unchanged. Bid pack 5 for the roofing is totally unchanged. Okay, if you flip to the back page there, bid pack 6 for windows, unchanged. Same thing, bid pack 7 there, you see the highlight for the fact that that's part of a combination bid that Rising Sun put together. I might comment that if you were to take the 3 bids there individually from Rising Sun and add those up, that for the most part, their bids, like when I go back and you look at like what they had for general trades with Isaac Tatum, they were lower by $289,000, okay, in bid pack 2. They were also lower by $138,000 than Mason Structures on bid pack number 3. And they were very competitive with bid pack number 7, being just slightly higher than Bennett Carpets. I say all that because if you add those 3 numbers up that were all very competitive, on the combo, they discounted their bid like $907,000. Okay, so they really did get very competitive with that combo. Okay. No change for bid pack 8 with tile, no change for bid pack 9 with flooring. Now here's the one thing under bid pack 10, and I mentioned that in the email, that on opening the bids and reading the bids, the deduct alternates for alternate number 1 for the terrazzo, that is actually what we're doing. The deduct to delete the premium vinyl that the terrazzo would replace were inadvertently not read, okay? And so we've highlighted that in the green right there for a deduct of $90,000 for carpet decorators, or a deduct of $121,200 from Bennett Carpets.
Let me make sure I understand exactly what you're telling us. If we went down the path of doing the terrazzo floor, is the cost $291 minus $90?
No. Okay, let me explain this then. If you look at the next bid pack number 11, it's for the actual terrazzo flooring, which was only an alternate. And so there's $0 listed in the base bid. Under bid pack 10, you would be getting a premium vinyl flooring product as the base bid. Okay? So when you look at the bid without an alternate being taken, you look at the carpet decorator bid, they're low by $6,000, or excuse me, by $14,000 at $291 versus $305. They're low. But when you look at the alternates, because the deduct, that actually switches, and Bennett Carpet will be your low bidder if you take alternate number 1, because they're giving you the larger deduction that offsets the difference. And to answer your question then, you look at, with alternate number 1, you would have a $144,000 bid for that alternate from Martina Brothers. So the difference is the 144 becomes...
Where are we? I'm sorry. Martina Brothers on...
Bid pack
11, bid pack 11, bid pack
Okay.
11, I'm sorry. Bid pack 11 for terrazzo. The low bidder for that alternate was Martina at 144. So if you take the alternate, you will take that bid for 144. That will be offset by the deduction of 121 from Bennett. So the terrazzo is only costing $23,000 and some change. Okay?
No, I'm
No.
still...
Okay, let me begin again. Bid pack number 10. In that bid under flooring, you have this resilient flooring, which is a premium vinyl product that would go in the gym lobby. Okay. That product is included in the base bid from Bennett Carpets of $305,400. Okay. But Bennett Carpets actually told us that if the alternate is selected, they will not be putting in that vinyl product, and they're able to delete the material and labor to give you, the board, a credit of $121,200. Okay? Is that
To put what in?
to do nothing, to put nothing in.
The terrazzo would.
Because the terrazzo would be under bid pack 11 with Martina. Carpet Decorators and Bennett, in bidding this, do not handle terrazzo. They do not. John
Okay, so
Hagan,
neither of these could do terrazzo.
neither could do the terrazzo. So we bid that as a separate package, number 11. Codell knew that and specifically said, let's get a price for the terrazzo. And he got that from those two different contractors under bid pack 11. So
Okay, so what is the tile part up in bid package 8?
that's wall tile like in the restrooms and the
Wall.
locker rooms.
Wall tile.
Right, and some floor tile. It's ceramic tile, quarry tile, wall tile,
Wall and
porcelain
floor.
tile. Not, you're right, in the restrooms, not terrazzo. Okay. And Martina Brothers actually does do tile there, and they actually are low, so that's where there's that confusion. In fact, I gave you a very good bid on that tile at $59,000 versus $71,000 or $84,000.
So if we knew we wanted to go with resilient flooring, then what is the cost? Make sure I understand this correctly.
If you want to go with resilient flooring and no alternate for the terrazzo, the low bidder is Carpet Decorators.
Okay, and then if we,
And the amount would be?
The 291, okay, 488. And that's actually, we're going to get to that. I'm glad you're asking the question. That's going to be a part of a base bid only kind of a discussion. If you didn't do any well, the only alternates I'm telling you that we would recommend you take are 2 and 3 because there's no cost associated with them. Okay, that was for the preferred masonry and hardware. So the bid from Rising Sun had no change in price. Okay.
and then if we knew we wanted to go the terrazzo route,
You
what
want
is
to go
the
the terrazzo
what is the
route?
net cost between both of those items?
The 23,000, the difference between the 144 that's going to cost you for Martina to put terrazzo down, offset by the deduction from Bennett, because now Bennett now becomes your low contractor and tells you that we're going to delete the premium vinyl product in the gym lobby. And so their 305, 400 is minus 121, 200.
Plus 144, so I get like 329
Yeah.
if we did that route.
Well, yeah, but you can't, it's actually $23,000 is the difference between the 121 and the 144. Okay, because you can't, you're mixing apples and oranges here. I mean, there's not going to be a bid of the three. I mean, it is and it isn't in the sense that I want to be clear that we're talking about you would award a package for the resilient flooring to Bennett and take alternate number 1, so their number would be reduced by 121,000. You'd have that credit that would come back.
Let me restate it again. If we knew we wanted to go with terrazzo flooring,
Right.
what is the cheapest cost route to accomplish that?
There's only one route to accomplish that, or from a bidding perspective, and that is that you would take Martina's bid, that is the low bid of 144,
Okay,
and then you would look up above and say, well, if we're taking terrazzo, we're going to delete, okay, and the price that was given to you by Bennett is substantially higher than the one from Carpet Decorators. So because of that deduction, now those contractors change, and instead of Carpet Decorators being low at 291, Bennett becomes low at 305 minus the 121 versus 291 minus 90.
all right, so 305 minus 121 plus 144.
Right, right.
329 is the cost to go that route.
It's the cost to go that route for all flooring.
Okay.
Right.
I just want you to understand that it's only $23,000 for terrazzo, which is a extremely good value.
Let's see, if we didn't do terrazzo, that 291, 488, right?
If you're right, right.
So we've got $328,000 minus 291. Is that right? In terms of what the cost difference would be,
Right,
which is $37,000, unless I'm, again, looking at this wrong.
right. let's do this. You've got exhibit number 3. Okay. Exhibit number 3 is,
Are we finished with exhibit number 1?
no. Exhibit number 3 is actually showing that under this scenario with the alternate taken, we've highlighted Bennett Carpets because of that change now and who the contractor would be. And they are at 305, but there would be this minus the 121, okay, that we discussed.
84 too.
And then the 144 added for this difference of 23,326 that's down there, okay, under alternate number 1. So Codell has done the math to say we're going to add 23,326 for alternate number 1 because we've taken a bid from Martina at 144 and then taken the deduct. Okay, and so yes, if you were to take then the 305,400 minus the 121 and then added the 144, then you would take the 305 plus the 23 and be at 328,726.
328,726 for those combined.
Right.
Or if we just wanted to do the resilient, 291. So the difference is 37.
No.
Yes, it is. We can handle the truth, just tell us.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to tell you, unless somebody's got some math wrong here that I'm looking at, if you take,
Well, how much is it going to cost us to go to do terrazzo flooring between both of those?
the cost to do terrazzo will be $23,326 because you're going to spend $144 with Martina as a contractor, but get a credit of $121 back.
Well, we can't do that and go with carpet decorators. So,
You cannot use carpet decorators, Carmen.
so again,
Right.
to go terrazzo between those two is $328,726. Okay? Can we agree on that?
No.
We can't?
Let me do the math first.
Okay.
Okay, because I'm doing it different than you because of trying to do it per the normal, I guess, architects were, But I guess I could tell you, yeah, if you take the 305, 400, which is the bid it's coming from, and then the difference being the 23,328, that's where we're getting that 320, or the 23,326, that's where the 328,726 comes from.
Okay? We're good on the 328,726.
So that's what you're gonna, that would be
That's the
your
total cost to do.
Total
the terrazzo.
cost to do
Yeah.
all the flooring with Bennett Carpets plus the terrazzo
And
from
if-
Martina.
and
I
if we-
didn't think we could do,
Right.
the
Versus,
total cost to do, when you're saying all flooring,
Okay, let me do this.
to do bid package 10.
305.
10 and 11 is all we're talking about.
Yeah, 10 and, I think what I wanted to draw the comparison is what's the cost to do 10 and 11
Okay, here's the
versus
thing.
just 10?
When you look at number 10, the 305 minus the 305,400 minus the 121,200, you will enter into a contract with Bennett for $184,200 minus whatever DPOs they have, but forget about that for now.
Whatever what?
Direct purchase orders, we've done that on several
Okay.
projects, okay, but let's just keep it, their bid would become $184,200. You would add to that the $144,526 for the Martina bid, the low bid from Martina to do the terrazzo. Those combined give you the same math of 328,726.
32726.
Right.
Okay, that's to do terrazzo.
Right.
And then the cost to not do terrazzo is
would go to
$291.
291.
And the difference is $37,238.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I tell you what, let's not get bogged down over
Right.
$10,000.
Yeah, let's
We got
move on,
other issues
guys.
to get bogged down in.
yes.
People were about to make a $20 million decision.
Yeah.
I think we need to take all the time we're going to take, whether it's
appreciate that.
tonight or
I
some
appreciate
other
that.
time.
Right. I
Okay.
mean,
Let's move along.
okay. So going back to Exhibit 1, we're almost complete with that. So like I said, we were trying to indicate that there were deductive numbers for bid pack 10 that we've now entered into that are in the bid tab that do impact the bid results in terms of alternates taken. The next thing is under bid pack, let me further, under bid pack 11, okay. On bid day, those of you that were there, when the bid pack was opened, it was read as a base bid number for Martina. And so we put 144,000, okay, the 526 in the base bid column. Okay? That was in error. Okay, that, you don't do the base bid with Terrazzo, it had to be the alternate. So it was just in the wrong column. That's important because when we go down to bid pack number 12, we have Conley Painting that had a very good bid, it looked like, at 185. As soon as they saw that number, they turned around and in writing, they contacted Codell to say, we have a mistake in our bid. We inadvertently did not summarize our bid and include the stadium painting. We just have the gymnasium.
And just to be clear, in terms of the rules of procedure, that's perfectly allowed.
That's allowed.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Right. Good question, yeah. If they acknowledge they've got that kind of mistake and we see these kind of numbers, they can withdraw, they ask for permission to withdraw their bid. Okay. So we highlighted that because that put Baston Painting as the next bidder. There was an ad of $104,000 for that difference. Okay. That's why I was kind of stressing this business with the Terrazzo being in the right column, because we actually reduced the cost from what we had on last Tuesday is what we thought was a base bid to what we have this evening. Okay. So then nothing to say about number 13, nothing to really add, about what happens with number 14. Nothing on number 15, a good number from a single bidder. DC Elevator does a lot of work in this area. Nothing on number 16 in terms of fire protection. Green Mechanical, I would talk to you here about the fact that we had 3 bids. The 2 bids from LACO and CKSM are very close, $9,000, $10,000 apart. Green Mechanical was $300,000 less at $2,270,000. So again, I think a very strong bid from Green Mechanical in terms of that price difference, in terms of them bidding the project very tightly. Which then gets us to bid pack number 18 with Fayette Electric at being our lone bidder, okay, at the $2,897,200. Okay. Also, Donald mentioned that there was some conversation about a mistake in a bid or whatever. Well, if you look out there for the alternate number 7, the $94,000. Fayette Electric acknowledged that in their mind should have been $294,000. But we have already shared with them, there is no could have, should have been at this point. You either live with your bid as it was bid, or you can ask to withdraw your bid.
What do you think about that particular item? Because I think if we go back to some earlier information you gave us just a couple of months ago, I believe, if my notes are correct, you all thought the lighting would be $132,250, which is kind of sort of maybe close to $94,000, but you're not.
Yeah,
$294. Have they explained why they think it should be $294? Is there a miscommunication going on here?
Well, I think that somewhere between them just getting the wrong number down on their bid, or else trying to somehow see that they're the only bidder and wanting to make a comment about, oh, we think we had a better number. Now, they did share with us that they actually could show us the invoice for the lighting and for the material only was $103,000 for the poles and the lights, just raw cost, just to try to justify the fact that the 94 was a bad number. I would tell you that we typically use about $25,000 to $30,000 per pole. We've got 6 poles, so that puts you in the 150 to 180 range, kind of a thing. So, we kind of made the comment to, when I say we, being the fact that Jeff Froelich with Trout Tech Wilson talked with them and explained after my conversation with Jeff that, look, you either live with your number or you can withdraw. And they chose to live with their number. Okay. Now, that's fine. I mean, that's up to them to decide whether they have enough ability to take, if honestly they think that number should have been higher, now they're gonna say that they can live with it. That means they either had enough money in their base bid to help cover that, or, I don't know. Now, one of the things that, I would want to kind of share with you is that I have some real hesitancy about this one bid for bid package 18 and having only received one number. When you look up above that and you have 3 bidders and there was a $300,000 swing, it's hard for me to justify coming to the board and saying, I recommend you accept bid pack number 18, when there could have been a $300,000 swing just as easily if we had a couple more bidders.
But didn't other bidders have the same opportunity as this bidder?
They certainly did. The only one I know is that on your bid tab, we had White House Electric that picked up plans, and they did indicate to Codell, to John Hagan, that they were seriously trying to bid. They had a family emergency that meant putting someone in the hospital. They kind of had to shut down their effort right there on Tuesday morning to get a bid together. And they've indicated they would be more than happy to try to bid it if it were to be rebid.
And if we do that, when Fayette Electric comes back with their bid,
They're either going to stay where they are and then go up on the alternate, or they could come down on their bid, or everybody could go up. It's kind of one of those things where it's really difficult to know what's going to happen in the marketplace. I mean, if you come out, if it's 4 weeks later.
Can we, if we pull that off to the side for consideration, considering that's probably not the first thing that's going to happen on the project, does that, if we set that off aside, does that materially change the timeline of the project?
One of the things that typically you try to do is get bids to support a bond sale. Now, we have this bid, and I would say that we probably could approach the Department of Education, Joe could maybe help speak to this, and use this bid from Fayette Electric as kind of a placeholder for like a value if you were going to try to go ahead and move forward and want to sell your bonds. And that's important because you're trying to have a bond sale and not have multiple bond sales by spreading this out over weeks or months. So if you could get the Department of Education to say, hey, we'll let you put this $2.8 million in there with alternates or whatever as a placeholder. And then if you want to rebid it, then you're essentially rejecting this bid and then going out for a new bid and see what happens. And then you would be able to go forward with your bond sale, but even if it was after the bond sale that you got new numbers, you could make a revision and submit that to the Department of Education and say, here's our new information on this one bid package.
even if the new information turns out to be higher than the placeholder.
Right, it would end up impacting your contingency right away.
And as another option, you could pull that electric simply out of what supported the bond sale. If we just simply wanted to choose the option of paying cash for that, then that doesn't even muddy those waters.
Yeah, if you had $3 million you wanted to apply to this bid out of cash, you could do that.
Okay, that would certainly simplify that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so.
bonding potential too.
And again, I don't know how much cash you're trying to put in the project. I'll lay that for Joe, and then if you have that kind of cash that's available that you could.
I would say, for all practical purposes, we need to have a real number before we're going to let us sell bonds. I guess in the past, the department has let us go in with an estimate for a particular package, but I have never seen them let us go in with an estimate to the tune of $3 million. If it was a $300,000 line item, that's close enough that you know, if you're a little bit under, you can take it out of contingencies, but my experience has been the department's not gonna let you proceed with a bond sale, with, almost a $2.9 million estimate.
But if we wanted to do the original bond sale that was proposed of $15.7 million, we could do that. And of course, what that means, we pay the rest of it in cash.
We would have to show the cash now as part of the project, and that, knowing that I would only be selling bonds for a lesser amount.
And I think we were showing like $4 million in cash. But maybe we ought to get into the details of that once we
Right,
get to
because we're
the
really
action.
close. Let me just finish this by saying that, okay, that is kind of my summary over the bid tab itself, okay? With what we've been able to review, what we've looked at, trying to talk about the only alternate that changes is what we talked about, just that link there about flooring, depending on which way you go with that alternate on terrazzo. Everything else stays the same, with the exception of Conley backing out, okay? So that's kind of where you are with those bids. Any questions about the kind of overall bid tab? And that's, like I said, that number that now we're going to use under exhibit number 2, because on bid day, we were adding things together quickly, not knowing that Conley was pulling out. We actually put that together, and that day, as we were looking at things, we had a little different number, in terms of the bid. We were at the 20,127,000 or something. And what I would share with you when you look at exhibit number 2, with carpet decorators as your base bid, and Baston having been added, that added $100,000. But with moving the terrazzo over to the proper line item for alternate number 1, you're now seeing a total base bid amount of $20,087,859. Okay, so I just wanted you to know.
Is it that 20 million rather than 20,000?
Excuse me, 20 million.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be having this discussion if it was 20,000.
Okay, exactly. But so the 20,087,859 is with your base bid, and based on no change with Rising Sun, looking at the preferred masonry and the preferred hardware. So you would accept those for the lowest price, minus whatever we do with Fayette Electric or any other kind of numbers. Okay, so again, trying to be totally transparent, that's a little different than the number that we had on Tuesday, when we were trying to pull everything together there and we're reviewing those bids. Okay. Now, I would share that this number here on exhibit number 2 is a number we've given Joe Nance, and he has that number and some information for you that goes along with this this construction cost for kind of base bid only. Exhibit 3, okay, is not much different, except that it's looked at what if we do change and take the alternates. So that's where we had the discussion about Bennett Carpets now becomes your low bid because of the deduction they provided. And you see a base bid number of the 20,101,000. You see the cost for alternate number 1, an extra $23,326 for the terrazzo. No cost for alternate 2 and 3. Alternate number 4 is for preferred roofing. What that is, what that represents is that AB Construction that bid the roofing, bid with Johns Manville, PVC, to go to Sarnafil, which matches the PVC membrane we have on the high school proper and the ATC, would cost $6,500. That's what that really represents, that, if you want to keep the same product so you have a similar warranty, and if you have a service call, the same person can work on both roofs, no question. They come out to work on the high school ATC proper. They could answer any kind of service needs or something on the competition gym. Okay. under alternate number 5, the preferred wall panels, that same bid from ABR Construction, they remain low regardless. I mean, they're at $98,900.
Could you take a pause on that and just explain exactly what the preferred wall panels are, what the scope of that is, and make sure we have a clear understanding of that?
Okay. The Department of Education wants us at any time to have competition in the bidding process. So right now, at the high school, we did that on the first bid that was handled, and we came back with a panel from Dry Design, the actual manufacturer. And so these are those metal wall panels. You see the two tones of light gray, darker gray metal panel that are on the exterior wall, okay, of the auditorium. Okay, and there actually are some of those same panels on the ATC, on the big spline or the entry there from on the back side going through the overhead door. What we're looking at here is that we provided competition, and AB Construction indicated they got a lower bid from a panel manufacturer named Metco. And the goal would be to try to get a similar panel in terms of size and shape, dimensionally, and also in terms of color. Now, we wanted to see what this would look like if we wanted to have Dry Design, so it's a dead-on match in terms of the panel color, and even I would say the sheen or the actual, look of the panel in the sunlight kind of a thing. When I saw this number, a little disappointed. I've already made a phone call to the representative that handles the Dry Design to try to understand what the difference was. One of the things that ABR Construction is not a certified installer currently with the Dry Design panel. They couldn't really, it would be hard for them to bid the Dry Design panel and self-perform, to install that. So their bid includes having Spawn, a certified installer, to make that installation. And there's a premium, or I guess, or more money in that for them. So I took the liberty of asking what this looks like if we were to, in the future, be able to have AB Construction to go to the training, become certified, because it's going to be a year and a half or something before we'd be installing these panels. What would that number look like? And so they've kind of given me just a verbal kind of conversation about that they're looking at $40,000 to $45,000 in savings on that $98,000 alternate. Now, I want to be clear here, you would still have to take this alternate as it's presented at $98,000. We would then, I think, be able to seriously look at a change order to allow, ABR to become a certified installer, trained, and, get assurances from Dry Design that this would be and I will tell you that from my experience here, ABR Construction is one of the better roofers in Kentucky. And so they have actually done a lot of work for our office, for other school districts across the Commonwealth here, and including metal panels. And so I have no fear of what they would do in terms of being able to install these panels. I would tell you that Kirkin Roofing on the original high school was a certified installer, and they did the actual Sarnafil roof and the Dry Design panels all in one package on the high school. So I feel confident that ABR could do the same thing. It's just they were being very upfront about the fact that they weren't a certified installer on bid day. They got a price, and they're still low. Still substantially low regardless when you look at all the bids on the bid tab. They're $100,000 lower than anybody else regardless of how you look at the pricing. So that's food for thought in terms of like if you move forward. I would think it's going to be important, or we wouldn't have bid it this way, to have a panel match for this gym right there next to the auditorium. And I think I can say that we're going to be able to do a better job with this price of $98,000 based on what I've learned today.
As you said, though, it won't occur for quite a while down the road. Is that a decision we have to make now?
No, you would make the decision now whether moving forward on the alternate, as to whether to take the alternate.
Well, do we have to decide on the alternate right now, or can we come back to this later on and say we'd like to pay?
We'd like to add that, we're a year down the road, or
Be
say
difficult.
6 months down the road.
No, if you took the base bid, what's going to happen is we're going to end up doing a direct purchase order for a Metco panels versus Dry Design panels. They're going to do shop drawings for the Metco panels versus Dry Design panels. And we'd be down the road with one supplier, wouldn't be potentially the right one. So it's not as easy as just waiting and then trying to do a change order somehow to add that after the fact, because we already would have a lot of work in place.
So they're both panels, they're both similar metal panels, they just have a slightly different look.
Yeah, I think that I'm more concerned about the actual color and finish, in terms of like if you're trying to get the exact color, the two-tone, the two different grays that we have, and also what I would call as far as the reflectivity or sheen. You know, you have like the gloss, semi-gloss, satin, what each panel's going to look like in the sun, even if they're trying to match the color.
Because those other panels have been on there for several years, you think new panels can get to the point of reasonably matching with them anyhow?
I think so. I think what's going to happen is you're going to get the same panel color that was original, and you've got a 2 or 3 year window here where that's already been out there in the sun, and so these may end up having to do some catch up, you know, but I think that ultimately, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road from now, they'd be a lot more blended and look a lot more the same than what would happen with a Metco panel. Even if the color matched day one, I'd be worried they're going to age differently even, and so you could end up with a real color differentiation 4 or 5 years from now with a different panel. But again, KDE, we don't really want to lock in one particular product. So this was open competition. You're getting a chance to see what that price looks like. I'm trying to work on that a little bit, but this would be what you would do. I think it would be in your best interest to make that decision now and then see what we can do, because if you move forward, like I say, we'd have the direct purchase order, shop drawings. They'd probably want to order the material, lock in a price, you know, because if you wait 6 months, then price won't be the same. Visitor bleachers. This is the 1,000 seats on the visitor side to complement the 4,000 we have on the home side that are part of the base bid. So if you look at this price of $264,320, that's roughly 1/4 of the base bid of the $1,103,000. I think it's a good number. It's not like they tried to raise that number or gouge that number up. That'll also include the ramp and the stairs and all the things that go with that separate set of bleachers. So we feel that like is a good number for that 1,000 seats. Tennis court, we've kind of talked about under the Rising Sun. You have the grading and everything associated with the tennis courts, paving, fencing, the striping, the coating, striping, the netting, the poles, everything for the, you know, the tennis courts themselves in that number, along with the lights. And so if you stay with Fade Electric, they live with this number of $94,000 and provide whatever it is that's in the documents. So it would be a total $320,000 for the tennis courts. I think a real bargain for that particular item. Same thing with mass grading under alternate number 8. Randall Davies has an alternate number for some of the pavement, asphalt pavement for that parking lot that's out there across from the Stadium Drive, near the future field house kind of area. And then the grading, the mass grading associated with that was only $326,000 from Rising Sun. Okay, and so that's well under our estimate that we had for that. And I think that if there was any one alternate you were going to take, it would probably be this one over. You're never going to get a price like that for somebody to come back in the future and start doing additional grading after the work's completed on the stadium and the gym. That while they're out there, that may be why their price is what it is. They've given you, I think, a very solid price for coming out and grading for the future baseball, softball field house.
That's grading, and also That small parking lot?
That small parking lot with Randall Davies, right? Mhm.
Does that include then the asphalt on that parking lot?
Yes, it does. The 143 is for the asphalt that's in that bid pack number 1 as a part of that total.
If we,
And you also have 20,000 down here under Fade Electric for some lighting. We had some pole lights for the parking lot.
do we have an option that's available through various means of saying, well, let's go ahead and do the grading for now, but hold off on actually paving the parking lot and putting the lighting in?
Right, you could hold off on the parking by just not taking the alternate number 1, or excuse me, under bid pack number 1, not taking alternate number 8 with Randall Davies. So you would, all the work that was associated with the pavement would just not be bid or not occur under this contract. And with the lighting, for $20,000 to get all that run underground and put those poles in, it might be better to do that than have to come back and start trenching or dig up. Or you could still come back with some other number, or if we're going to look at rebidding this, I mean, whether there's another contractor that's going to have a different number, and you can do that, or come back and add that a year from now and do it as a change order. But the $20,000 is again a good number for the poles that we had out there for the parking lot. So again, if you were to take all the alternates, you see the number becomes $21,304,417. And like I say, it's the boards can make whatever decisions you want to make. What I had in the email I sent, or what our goal was, is to determine what alternates you really want to pursue, comfortable with, in order for us to be able to move forward with reviewing the bids. We have no real action for you tonight over any bid approvals. It's more or less selection of alternates and how they impact the bids, and our review of the bids for direct purchase orders, for which contractor is actually now low, and how to move forward in preparing revised BG1s for Mr. Nance and for the board to look at some future time. Okay. Any more questions about where we are with the alternates versus the base bid, and the fact that just a few minor things changed? Okay, now may be a good time to have Mr. Nance kind of go ahead and explain, based on these numbers with these two different scenarios and other options, I guess, or other customized versions are possible, for sure. He can kind of share with you where you are monetarily, from a funding standpoint.
Good evening. Hopefully my presentation won't be near as complicated as Ron's was. I know, when you're talking about taking different bid packages and combinations, it does get a little bit cumbersome going through that. But what I have for you this evening are two handouts. I've got plenty of copies. We could just take one and pass it down. I'll wait till all these, I'm sorry. Now pass them around. So what I've put together as we're passing these out is I've got two different scenarios for you to look at. And basically, scenario one is, what if we just take the base bid, which would be the minimum bid for the project. And scenario two would be, what if we take all of the alternates? And I'm trying to give you a scenario of where the money comes from, and to assure the board that you could afford it if you wanted to. So first, let's look at the 2-page where it's BG1 forms. It's the 2 pages stapled together. And I want to briefly go through this. And if you look at the first page and again, this is just a sample BG1. This is nothing that we're approving. But if you notice on the left-hand column, the top line, we've got a total construction cost of $20,087,859, and that matches the base bid that Mr. Merle just went over with you. Now, as you're all aware, whenever we do a construction project, in addition to the quote construction bids, you have all the other costs associated with the project. So we identify, based on that base bid, what all the other costs associated with the project are. Going down the line, you've got to pay your architect, that's per your standard agreement with your architect, your construction manager fee. The bond discount is related to the financing. Whenever we bid out your bonds, we allow a 2% underwriter's discount that's built into the cost of interest of the bonds. The fiscal agent fee is where we come in per our agreement with the board. We always have to budget a 5% contingency. We've got a line item of $242,000 for equipment furnishings. We've got under number 11, special inspections and commissioning. We've got survey and geotech, plan review fees and printing, and your bonds will be rated by Moody's Investor Service, and we pay your bank a one-time fee to service the bond issue for 20 years. So altogether, when you look at the base bid, we've got a total project cost of $23,941,113.49. Now, on the right-hand side is how we propose or project that we're going to pay for the project. And again, going down the line items, line item number 1 is SFCC restricted cash. That is cash that Alicia has in escrow that's leftover building fund dollars from previous years. We've got $156,980. We would be selling bonds through the School Facility Construction Commission in the amount of $1,565,000.
Could we take a pause there a second?
Yes, sir.
Back in the spring, that item wasn't on there, so why does that include SFCC?
And I'm gonna go through that on my last page to line that out. So hold that question and I will point that out.
Okay.
Line item number 6 is general fund cash, which matches up with what was previously on the BG1. That cash has been moved over from your general fund into the construction fund. Line item number 8, cash building fund, that previously was not shown because we're now into a new fiscal year. You know, when we did the original BG1 form, that was, I guess, some 9 months ago, back in the previous fiscal year. So now that we're in the current fiscal year, once we make our bond payments, left over in our building fund will be an additional $450,000 cash that we can put in this project, so that's a good thing. That's additional restricted cash. Line items 12 and 13 are the same numbers that we previously looked at. We've got a balance in 2 old construction funds that we're going to be able to move that cash over of $335,552 from previous BG 11190 and $2,182,000 from BG 08107. So again, the funding available matches the funds needed on the left-hand side. Now flip to page 2. And if you look at page 2, the only difference on page 2 is if you look at line item number 1 on the left-hand side, that includes the alternates, the $21,304,418. I think Ron had 417 on his thing. I think that might be due to rounding, so you know that's includes all alternates. You'll notice that when you increase the construction cost, all of the other associated fees go up slightly accordingly, but altogether down at the bottom, we've got a grand total of $25,280,009.24. And over on the right-hand side, how we're going to pay for it, the difference there is you would be spending more in a local bond sale, and then also we would be increasing the general fund contribution by about $434,000. So this shows the 2 scenarios. I think I just wanted the board to see, you know, how the breakout goes. Now refer to my 1-page handout. And this shows our total bonding potential and funds available. So as of today, if you look at the top section, we could bond as much as $20,795,000. And how that breaks out is we've got $19,230,000 of local bonding potential and $1,565,000 of SFCC bonding potential. And the reason, Mr. Heisel, we had not included that SFCC bonding potential on the original BG1. Again, we had anticipated the project coming in at a lower cost than it is, and we were going to save that $1,565,000 for a future project. Now that the project has come in higher than we anticipated, it would be advisable, in my opinion, to go ahead and use the state's bonding also to go on this project. But that $1.5 million has always been in our coffers available to use for a project.
Does the 1.5 million, does it have the same cost structure in terms of the agent fee and
Yes.
the other base items?
Yes.
Is it done then all together?
Yes, altogether, yeah. What happens is, whenever we sell your bonds, we actually sell one bond issue that includes both amounts.
Okay.
When we do our repayment schedules, we structure it so that you pay your part of the issue back and the SFCC pays their part of the issue back. So it's just a matter of where does the cash come from to pay the bondholders. We issue one bond, but we do have that cash flow available from the SFCC that they can service the debt on $1,565,000 of the bonds. So again, that's what our total bonding potential is. Now, going down, the next several line items are the cash that's available. And here's what I'll point out. The line item that says SFCC cash requirement, the $156,980, if you recall what we were previously carrying on the BG1 form, which is line 1, was $25,866, because again, once that BG1 form was done before the closeout of last year, so once we closed out the year as of June 30th, and any balances that were in our building fund flowed into that SFCC cash, so we roughly picked up another $131,000 in that fund that can now be used since we're in the new fiscal year. The general fund cash, the $2,466,184.69 is the amount that has previously been set aside. Now you'll notice on the second column where it says base plus alternates, what we're projecting is that if we want to take all the alternates, we would increase that cash from the general fund to the tune of about $434,000. So that if we only take the base bid, we would be putting in $2,466,000, which has already been put in. But if we take the alternates, we would be recommending that we put in an additional $434,000 out of your general fund to help pay for that. Any question?
Okay, well, let me make sure. We concretely understand about what is on this paper is labeled as general fund cash. That's not the general fund cash. When we look at the contingency of, let's call it 14 million, that's not coming out of that. It's already come out.
That came out last fiscal year.
Okay.
Now, what I will say, if we go with the scenario that I'm showing and we take the alternates, then approximately $434,000 of the additional general fund cash would be coming out of that roughly 14 million balance that we currently have.
But that's what they confirmed is so that if we went with the base bid, the 2466, the 335, and the 2182, that's already taken out of our general fund contingency of 14 million. It wouldn't affect that.
Correct.
So we could move forward with the base, not touch that.
The 2.4 was out of general fund, the 335 and the 2.1 are leftovers from past construction projects. They're not in the general fund.
They're already out.
Already
They
out.
never were.
They don't touch our 14 million.
That you currently have in this fiscal year, yes, correct. And then again, the building fund cash, like I explained earlier, that's an additional $450,000 that wasn't previously on the BG1, and the reason we can show that now is that here we are in October in a new fiscal year, and we calculate all of your bond payments and then your building fund and capital outlay fund dollars. We will have $450,000 of cash left over out of the current year that we can apply towards this project. So again, that's not general fund cash, but that's restricted building fund cash that we can put in. And so really, no further explanation on the other two amounts because those are the amounts that have already been put aside. So altogether, if you look under the base bid scenario, we're showing $26,386,113.49 available. On the BG1, we would be looking at a total project cost of $23,941,113.49. So the net effect is, we would not be using $2,445,000 of our bonding potential that's there for the next project. So going with the base bid only, with the cash we have available, we still have $2,445,000 available in bonding for some future project. Now, on the right-hand side, if we take the alternates, again, the cash available, or the total available, is $26,820,009, which includes that additional $434,000 of general fund cash. You subtract the total project cost, which leaves us a balance of bonding potential of $1,540,000. And really, in looking forward and talking with your superintendent, we know that we've got another project that's on the horizon that we want to do. And I think we've had some discussion that, what would it take to kind of get a phase one going of your next project? So I really kind of backed in to how much additional general fund we do need to contribute so that we do leave that roughly $1.5 million of bonding potential. Then if you look outside the box, we can make reasonable projections that when the General Assembly meets beginning in January, we get a new budget, we will get additional bonding potential, we'll get a new offer of assistance from the SFCC, which will increase our bonding. We typically get an increase in our state nickel matching funds, so it's reasonable that we can project once we get into the new fiscal year, after we have a new state budget, that there should be an additional $2 million in bonding potential. So if you take, the roughly 1.5 that we have left over with the $2 million in new bonding potential, about $3.5 million is a reasonable amount that we can get a phase one of our next project going. So, we're always thinking ahead. This is not the only project we have, so we have to, number one, identify how can we pay for this project, but we also have to be looking ahead. How do we start looking at the next project that's a priority on our list? Any questions?
I'm not sure if it's on these sheets or on another sheet that you passed out. What is the average interest cost that you were projecting?
I think we're looking at my projections are based on 3.38% average interest rate.
Did you give any thought to whether we ought to, since we're earning, I think 1.5% right now on the cash that we have, actually moving more cash over and borrowing less right now, and then we pick that borrowing
that's
up later
definitely
on?
an option. From my conversation with your superintendent, with your finance director, the initial $2.5 million that's been moved over out of the general fund, they were very comfortable with that. They're also very comfortable with taking another 400 and some thousand. That would be a board decision and central office. Do you have a comfort level of putting even more general fund cash? And yes, sir, that definitely would be an option. I think it comes down to what's the comfort level of you all maintaining a reserve and putting additional cash into this project. But that would be an option not only for this project, but it also would be an option when you look at your next project down the road that we're kind of earmarking $3.5 million. At that point, you can make a decision. We want to take additional general fund cash to go towards this next project.
But if we were to do a project that is not on the priority one of the facility plan, we cannot bond it, is that correct?
That is correct.
So.
Well, let me clarify. If you have a priority 1, 2, and 3, you can bond. But it's the projects that are your priority 5s that are kind of your discretionary items on your facility plan. Those are typically the ones you would pay cash for. So the point, I guess your question would be, you would have more flexibility down the road if you had cash for future projects. They're not in your top priorities, yes.
What you just said was,
Go ahead.
Because you just said we could bond category 1, 2, or 3. We can bond any of those category projects. We don't have to complete.
No, you don't have to complete a one
That was your
and then
question,
go
right?
next.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my question. Can we do a preschool without,
Yes, yeah.
With or
The
without
preschool is
bonding?
on your current facility.
Priority two.
But it is a priority two.
Priority two would be an eligible use of bond funds. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Absolutely,
thank you.
yes.
There's an argument there whether that athletic complex would have to be filled. And I sat on the committee, and I think the committee spoke loudly and clearly that they want the athletic complex fulfilled before any other things are built. So that's a different argument for a different time.
But I think what I want to present to the board, that if it's your desire, we can come up with the funds necessary to complete either the base bid or all alternates, and still be able to maintain some reserve for going forward with the future project. And I am very comfortable with these numbers. The one thing that I would say is my projection of 3.38% interest rate. If I could sell your bonds today, we're probably going to get a little better than that. But again, I always have a little bit of a safety factor, because even if we approve immediately on this project, by the time we come back with another meeting, we get stuff into the Department of Education, it's going to be a minimum of 5 weeks down the road before I could actually sell bonds, get all the approvals, and lock in the interest rate. So I do want to have a little bit of a safety factor in case rates go up, but I'm very comfortable with the rates I'm projecting, that if anything, I think when we bid out your bonds, they'll come in a little bit better than my projections, which will then leave a little bit more money for the next project.
Okay.
Any questions? If I could maybe elaborate on a couple of comments that Ron made earlier. In my opinion, I think it's important that we tie down everything we can in contract for this project before we move forward. And I think specifically the question came up on the electrical package, which is a pretty substantial package. I don't, even though we would be paying, we could demonstrate we're paying cash, by that being such a substantial package of this project and integral to completing the project, I don't think we could get approval from the Department of Education to move forward with the bond sale until we had that number nailed down. So my point would be, I think if there is consideration that we may want to rebid that package, I would suggest that we go ahead, rebid it as soon as we can, get in that real number so that there's no question on delaying the total project, because my experience with the Department of Education is I doubt they will let me proceed selling bonds until we have the entire package nailed down.
Let me restate what you just said.
Yep.
You'd say theoretically, you could set that off the side and pay cash, but when you take it over to Frankfurt, say, here's the building we're gonna be building, and they go, but it doesn't have any electricity in it?
Exactly.
I don't think the bondholders are gonna.
Exactly.
That's the fault in that path?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good analogy. You know, you can't build part of a project.
Well, we're not gonna have much of an effective building with electricity in the modern era.
Exactly, exactly. Any other questions? So, you know, from my standpoint, you know, good news. You know, we're able to move forward if we desire, and and of course, it's at the board's desire as to how far we go with it. Thank you. I'll have a seat in case there's any other questions in a moment.
Okay. Mr. Christie, any comments?
No. Till you all make some decisions here, and then we'll go from there.
All right, discussion.
I think we probably first need to acknowledge and put a finger on what the differences are in terms of the estimated cost. You know, it's all estimated until we get the bids in, but I think the last estimate was August 15th, and that was 17.677 million was the latest and greatest estimate that we had. Is anyone aware of any estimate we got since then, before the bids?
That was it. It was on the last BG one.
Yeah. And if I looked at this correctly, and I may not have, the number 3 base bid was 20,087,000. And so the base bids come in $2.4 million over. I mean, we just have to acknowledge that's the bad news. The good news is, Mr. Nance picked out, we can fund that. But the difficulty that presents to us, and why we have to look at it holistically, is, I mean, $2.4 million, it's a lot of money. That's the entire cost of the baseball stadium and the softball stadium. You know, we're gonna move forward on the whole daggum thing if the bids had come in. So I think unfortunately, we need to look at the whole thing as a package. And I hope we have the opportunity to develop a path that we can move forward. Because from my perspective, I want to make sure we're moving forward on this, but still give us the opportunity to continue to, as the term has been bannered about, do some value engineering on this project and bring that cost down and go through it with a fine-tooth comb, shall we say, without holding up the progress of the project. And, you know, whether there's a path available to get started on grading while we go through with the fine-tooth comb, I don't know, but that's, in a broad brush, those are my two concerns. But that's just my 2 cents worth. I certainly don't want to trample on anything you all have to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's important to acknowledge that, yes, we're aware of that, obviously, that discrepancy. I think that, you know, we've kind of spent some time in our office looking at where things were, and with the different bid packages, it's easy to kind of break out or see some of the major differences or some of the busts, if you will, in cost opinion. We can get into more detail if you want to, but I think that in the end, we feel like we have drawn and put into the project what was requested in terms of looking at everything from the gym itself to the stadium.
In fairness, while you discussed that, there was certainly many agencies that reviewed this, KDE, but also Housing, Building, and Construction. I'd heard a discussion out there that the good folks at Housing, Building, Construction actually, from August 15th to where we are now, they brought some requirements to the table that
That's true.
Unfortunately have increased the cost. Could you elaborate on that some? Because we want to be fair here and understand all the components that have caused this. So what change did they make, or did they mandate that didn't help us, shall we say?
When we did our preliminary design and initial, conversations we had with the Housing, Building, and Construction, HBC, Building Codes Enforcement, we actually received an email from them that they felt like that the gym could be permitted as an educational use. Now that's very important because under educational use, it allows you a different square footage, maximum square footage that's available to you than if they reviewed it as an assembly. That as an assembly, a public assembly, there's more restrictions. When we submitted our documents to them, they came back with a comment that, no, your gym has to be looked at as an assembly if you want to use it for specific public events or other purposes other than maybe what they would deem pure educational. One of the examples they gave was a school district that was permitted under educational, but then they realized they were having a fundraiser and they were bringing in different mattress warehouse manufacturers and setting up shop in the gym for a fundraiser. And they're like, wow, we don't really know that we like the idea that somebody's bringing in materials like that in the gym, setting up shop, if you will, for a weekend, merchandise retail effort as being educational. So in terms of maximum flexibility moving forward, we had a meeting with HBC. I am glad that Mr. Christie was able to attend to be able to hear this firsthand, that they were like, look, you can have school events like an assembly, you can have even graduation, because we feel like you have both, students, staff, teachers, parents that are familiar with the building, not an issue. But if you were trying to have a concert, if you wanted to allow somebody else to come in and use the facility that's not purely educational, then they could restrict that. So all that's to say that we had to go
I'm
back,
sorry, they who could restrict that?
housing, building, and
So you
construction.
have to get their approval before you bring any group in?
They would not, I asked that question, they don't police that. They don't have a police agency within that context. But if they were to, over time, get wind of that, or what they're trying to do is make sure that they, under building codes enforcement, doing due diligence over the way that they're seeing gymnasiums being used. Don't want the board, or didn't want to be in a position where somebody used it, a band sent off some pyrotechnics, as a part of their, their show, and something catches fire, and now you've got an issue because you've used it differently than the way it was permitted. So we thought it was in everybody's best interest to pursue an assembly. We actually asked for variances, and we were granted variances on several items because of the nature of the construction. But to speak specifically, they did require us to come back and do fireproofing of all the structural steel members that support the mezzanine. We also had to wrap the columns in the gym proper up on the, on the lower level, upper level have to be wrapped with either masonry or fire-resistant gyp. And then also, they required us to have a deluge wall, a water wall for the fire protection system that in case of a fire would protect the big curtain wall you see in that lobby, that two-story glass atrium, if you will, in order, because there are structural elements inside that we can't wrap with masonry or gyp and maintain the look of what was presented to you in terms of that elevation. And so we approached them and compromised over putting a water wall in there that has been done in the past to protect that, especially since that's kind of a means of egress down that stair. So, yes, several items came from them. We also had items come from the Division of Water, also from plumbing, that we had to make changes in the mechanical, electrical, or plumbing systems and everything.
But just on this difference between being permitted for educational use and being permitted for an assembly space, have you all tried to put a dollar figure on what that is going to cost to have that use differential?
We did get, John Hagan was able to contact one of the contractors that made the supply the number, and they did have a specific breakout number of $110,000 for the fireproofing alone on the structure, the steel structure under the mezzanine. There's another probably 40 or 50,000 with wrapping the columns. And then we know that we have a number, probably, I think we're in the neighborhood of $100,000 with that curtain wall, kind of that fire curtain wall that was part of the plumbing, the difference in the plumbing cost for fire protection, if you will.
So if my handy pencil here, to pen actually, did that correctly, that's $250,000.
Right.
To have something that's rated for assembly versus educational use. Could we circle back around then and talk about what's permitted under educational use? Can we have a district tournament there?
Yes.
Okay. Can we invite local small colleges to have a basketball tournament there?
Probably not.
Okay.
It wasn't educational it wasn't deemed as educational for our kids. And having anything that went outside of our staff and our students being involved there, they said was something outside of that, because those other folks that would be coming in weren't trained in evacuations and those kinds of things. But any of the events that we would be having for our school and our folks, the students, the staff, and everybody that would be in attendance were trained on evacuations. That was a big marketing thing.
And I don't want to bog us down here, but it's a pretty important difference.
That means even
this $250,000 does, and I'm assuming we have the ability, if we want to, say we're not going to have concerts there, and we could go back and apply for educational use only. Is that correct?
I would think so, right. I mean, it was one of those kind of things that, knowing what was talked about in terms of what the gym would be able to be used for, that was really difficult for us to want to, we were not prepared to bid this project as if you would then going forward not have any ability to use it to its full potential in terms of community, especially with the community aspect of everything.
I'm not sure you want to go that. I mean, now you're talking, you couldn't have a community assembly there.
Such as for what?
Well,
Candidates forum.
candidates forum.
I don't think we need a 5,000,
Well,
4,000
no,
candidates
no,
for it.
but-
I mean, it's a big number. I think, you know, to give it another perspective, do we want to not put in the visitor bleachers so we can have an assembly space? About the same money.
I think it's gotta be a community building.
Yep.
I think it's gotta be, I think, you know, the community's gonna get behind it. You gotta have something that's gonna bring your community, you know, you've got Daniel Boone Festival, you've got the possibility of those type of concerts that could be in there. I think the greatest thing about schools are opening up to the community, and when you say, no, we built a gym out there that we're gonna play volleyball and basketball and this and that, and we're not gonna allow, you know, anybody from the community to come out here to try anything else to help enhance our community, I think would be wrong on our.
We have youth assemblies that uses school. That we've been over capacity at Campbell for these things in the past. That this would open up new opportunities to them. I mean, bringing in kids with speakers.
That sounds like educational to me, though.
Not when it's not sponsored by the school, it's not.
But why would you want to get in an argument
Yeah.
over whether it was or not?
And if
Because
something were to happen.
Because I want to have $250,000 available to put visitor bleachers in.
I think we've got that.
Other comments?
From my standpoint, you know, everything that I saw here, everything that I want, and there's a lot more. It was very good to hear Mr. Nance talk about the funding that we had and the additional funding that we'll have left over. Of course, as Dr. Kudak said, that just for another discussion somewhere else, but I was very pleased with everything I see tonight. I think, you know, that we should very quickly proceed ahead with the alternates.
The 6?
My head is spinning. It's just a lot to.
Does,
Everything sounds good, but those bottom lines still, that much scares me tremendously. But the numbers all look good. Yeah, we can do it, but it still makes me a little nervous with that amount.
so we're being asked, to make sure I understand correctly, to give an indication as to whether we want to go base bid or what alternates. We certainly we're preserving the option to let people, you all, continue to look for value engineering items that are through here.
Right, I mean, let me talk about that vehicle. Just like I've talked about with this one item over the metal panels and looking at how we could maybe try to accomplish a lower number. I'm sure there are other avenues or other things that could be looked at even after the bids were approved and received to go back and say, okay, where are the big ticket items? You can either do that sort of after the fact, which does limit some of the competition if you want to be, you know, or you have to do it up front where you make whatever changes you want to make and prevent new bid documents out there for the public to completely rebid and provide a good number. I think we could be chasing our tail if we're talking about trying to take things out, get new numbers. There have been several projects I've been involved with where you can take something out. You might think you're taking out $1 million and then you rebid it. You've only saved, you know, $400,000 because other things went up or nobody was going to give you that full credit, especially when everybody's numbers are already out there in the general public. A lot of the contractors aren't real happy with the fact that they've put this number together and then you're out there trying to rebid with a few tweaks. And if we're talking about trying to value engineer a few things, whether it be finishes or whether it be, you know, the sound system in the gym, how can we do some things differently than what we have and have those conversations with the successful contractor and suppliers. It's something we certainly are open to do.
What is the exact parameters of the motion that potentially would be under consideration tonight?
Tonight would only be for me and for us to move forward confidently with what we're preparing for a future meeting where bids would actually be approved, is what you really want in the way of alternates, whatever combination you want, or like you mentioned about the asphalt pavement, if you're not really wanting to accept the Randall Davies number for the asphalt for that parking lot under alternate number 8, then we would just not, they would prepare a contract that didn't include that. And so that's off the table.
That's something that you would like for us to decide tonight, not at a subsequent meeting.
Right. That would be like in order to be able to move forward. A goal would be to have those alternates, whether there's, none, 1, or 8, or some combination, to say this is what we want in the way of alternates, so we can move forward with the contractors like Bennett Carpet or CDI providing their information to us in terms of direct purchase orders and what the actual dollar amount's going to be. It'll be the basis of Mr. Nance getting his information together for a future meeting, The other big item would be, besides the alternates, is about this, like Mr. Nance mentioned, bid pack number 18 for the electrical, whether it's a number that you're good with today, knowing that they have this error that they've said they confidently can still pursue the project or complete the project as specified. They've kind of acknowledged that they have a bad number that they put down, but we don't have any other competition to really compare that number. Or we could, like I say, get very specific about if tonight you wanted to make a motion to rebid bid package number 18, we would put an advertisement give an advertisement in the paper tomorrow. It would be run in, Friday's paper. We do a 2-week bid time. We get that bid back, in early November, in order to get a number for you for some subsequent meeting to look at that number, and that would be included in whatever bond sale that you're trying to pull together.
So that the bond sale couldn't happen until after we get the number from the bid, as I understood from Mr. Nance and what you're saying now.
Right.
You keep mentioning that, Ron, but isn't that somewhat of a gamble to rebid that? I mean, we're looking at 200,000 there, and I mean, how much more is somebody else gonna knock off there?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if they come in 50,000 less, then, okay, we might have saved 50 on there, but then what if they come in, what if Fayette Electric's the only one comes back in again?
That's true.
And when they come back in again, we're
They've
too
already
late.
indicated their bid's gonna go up.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We know
is
it's
that
gonna go up by.
We know they're gonna go up 200,000
Something, right.
out there.
That's what
We
they're saying.
don't know.
Fayette Electric's a big-
And I'm just saying, if the other company knows that they're off 200,000, this is pretty much public information. So they come in at 175 under it. So, I mean, I just think it's kind of a gamble to go. I mean, that's just me. Now, you guys are the experts, and I want to listen to what you guys say, but it
Well,
seems like a
it's always not,
$200,000 gamble.
to be, I mean, for the glass number that we only have one bid, and for the elevator number we only have one bid, those numbers are, much smaller, and in the ballpark, of $57,000 on the elevator, that's not a really big deal one way or the other, and it's a good number in terms of where it should be. I mean, if it had been $157,000, we'd probably be saying, reject that bid, let's rebid that, because it was an outrageous number, but those numbers are good. Not to say that Fayette Electric is outrageous, but when you're talking about a $3 million, with alternates bid, it's, 12% of the project or something. So it's really hard to like say, we only have that one bid. And, could there be a better number out there? Well, that ship may have sailed. I mean, I am concerned about that.
But, so we have the path of, potentially we could approve this with all alternates tonight, and then challenge you all to go back and do the fine tooth comb item and look at that and say, are the shower finishes, is that something we could back off on? Look at the electric bid, and say, is there anything we could take out of there? And that's, as the process is going along, that would be removed, or would that be simply on change orders down the road where we would propose things? How would those occur?
It would be through change orders.
And if I could elaborate, you'll notice one big item on our funding source for this project is that $2 million and something of cash from the previous BG1 project. So what would happen in a perfect scenario is we fund this project, we do several savings change orders along the way. And when we finish this project, we might have $2 million of cash left in this project that can go to some future project also. So any savings we could get along the way would just be generated as cash in this project that we could then, once this project's finished, use for some other project.
The Department of Education requires you, like Joe said, to have a 5% contingency, so we've got right over $1 million and change for having that 5% of the 20 million.
The high school project, we had, what was the percentage in change orders? It was less than 1%, less than 1% of, we use less than 1% of that contingency. We actually built the ATC out of it.
Get rid of the funds from every project we've done.
And these change orders, instead of occurring maybe a year and a half down the road, these are things that if it got to that point, you could, you would award everything, and then you would sit down with them the very next day and say, all right, and say, guys, y'all got it, congratulations, we're happy to working with you. What are items you think that we could take out? And you could negotiate those things even before you get started, as opposed to way down the road.
Right, so we wouldn't have materials ordered or things on site. We would try to catch that all up front, bring that to the board with some kind of, itemized list of things that you could consider and have a cost associated with that, the savings associated with that. Okay.
I have two comments. First thing, every time, we've been looking at this on and off for 2 years, every time we look at this, the price increases significantly. Logarithmically, in fact. I probably should plot that out and see if it's log scale or not, I'd be curious. So, I would also say on the subject of change orders at this price, I will not support a single change order which increases the price on this project. I want to get that clear, and I want everybody to hear that right now, okay? I will not vote for one that's going to increase the price of that project. This is increased again. One of the reasons I would hesitate to not rebid 18 is because every time we have looked at this, the price has gone up. We're probably going to be another $250,000 in the hole or higher when that number goes up. So I just want to get that out. I want to make sure everybody's involved with that project is clear on that. Okay? All right.
Has your firm given any thought to the fact that since the project's come in $2.4 million higher, and you all work on a percentage basis, if you all have done the same amount of work, and quite frankly, you're going to get a much larger paycheck for it to voluntarily try to limit the increase. So we could all go together and make this happen.
Right. Well, I think that, like Mr. Nance mentioned, all of our contractual relationship is based on the KDE standard about being a percentage of construction. So if construction comes in less, then our fee goes down. Construction comes in more, then it's really generally seen as being, well, we ended up writing whatever specifications, doing whatever drawings, doing whatever construction administration, doing everything moving forward. For us personally, in terms of the office, and I know with Shrout, Tate Wilson, everything like that, we've adjusted and made a lot of different changes as we move forward, and have not at any point in time asked the board for any additional monies because of changes that were made after we were well past schematic design or even DDs in terms of making those changes to construction documents. We spent a lot of time, even in overtime, trying to make those changes happen in terms of getting the bids and stuff together or to get that out on the street, So I know that we have tried to be diligent in terms of what we're presenting. I'd agree with Dr. Kudik that we have pricing going up every time we get together based on trying to put numbers together. We knew we were doing some things that were added to the project at the end with the comments that came from Housing, Building, and Construction and everybody that we did, even by addendum, after we were already out on the street, we were making some of those adjustments. And so now coming back and making the pledge to take whatever time we need to try to turn around and pull those numbers back down is going to, again, be more time to make that happen, What I could share was maybe what we need to look at doing is as we pull those things down, which normally we do not do, would be actually reduce our fee based on those deductive change orders.
So normally the fee is not affected by change orders or not affected by deductive change orders?
Not affected by deductive change orders since the work was performed. And then when you do deductive change orders, like taking something back out, like in this instance, let's say we specified a particular floor finish, and we have all that in the documents, then we turn around and say, okay, we're going to delete that completely and go with just sealed concrete to save money. Then obviously we would not have done all that if we had known that we were going to just stay with sealed concrete day one and not have written a spec for, the terrazzo or the vinyl, or in this case, we wrote specs for actually both. I mean, and we're only going with one. So we already kind of have done double the work with only one item being selected. So moving forward with whatever we can do with this value engineering and come back and make sure we make those adjustments.
Get me taking increase, be careful.
So are you saying you would be willing to,
Yes.
to,
With the
follow
value
along?
engineering items to come back and try to pull that number back, because obviously, we're not, happy with the fact that on our cost opinion, we ended up, even though things were happening at the last minute, that there was obviously things that, based on the market, I think where things are bidding, that they're telling you that's what the costs really are. And when we're trying to put an estimate together, when you look at, like, say, like mechanical bid, you got 3 different people looking at a set of plans and specifications, and they have a $300,000 difference in their bid, low to high. I mean, that shows that there's a marketplace difference right there. It's not like they're $30,000 apart. They're $300,000 apart, and they're looking at the same thing. We're trying to judge this as architects and engineers, looking ahead as to when this is going to bid. And what we think, for me, part of, I think, what happened is the wage rate removal did not have as big an impact as what maybe a lot of people thought. That contractors are still bidding work based on what is prevailing, regardless of what, when you take those off, there still is a going rate. So that was in their bid. So, but yeah, moving forward, if you want to go forward, we'll work with you on the fee as far as pulling those numbers down. Okay. Other questions for me?
Other discussion? Silence?
Are we ready for a motion? What we're looking for?
I'll entertain one, Gordon.
Well, I would move that we approve bids for the George Rogers Clark Athletic Complex and Performance Gymnasium along with all alternative bids. Is there anything else, Mr. Christie, that needs to be added? Ron, is there anything? Don't let me forget anything.
I would just comment that we might revise that to say not really approval of bids, but just that the board is selecting all alternates. To be a part of the future,
So we're acknowledging the bids and approving the alternates, but that would be what we should say?
Right.
Yeah. You want all the alternates. We need to decide tonight whether you want alternates or
Okay,
not.
and I would change my motion there just to say that we're acknowledging the bids for the George Rogers Clark Athletic Complex and Performance Gymnasium and approving all alternate bids.
Okay.
Would you mind if we interjected into that, the exact dollar cost, since we have 2 or 3 sheets here, to make sure we understand precisely what that number is?
Oh, right.
Yeah, would you mind?
Sure, that's fine. I mean, acknowledge the bid of, where we at with Mr. Nance over here with
This
that.
would be a total of the
Total project.
$21,304,417.
418.
So
We
see-
don't have to do that final thing that Mr. Nance, we're not at the 25, we're not.
You're talking about
No, what you're
construction
talking about
cost.
Okay,
construction.
okay, just
We're gonna
this,
come
okay.
back in a future meeting, probably your next week's meeting, and formalize everything.
Wanna make sure we didn't leave that out.
So that is the 21,304,417 and
18.
or 18.
18.
Can we do the 17? And that is construction cost?
Yes.
Okay, that would be the correct
With
term.
alternates.
Okay.
Which number? This is the one under base bid amount on Exhibit 3.
That's
Right.
correct.
I'm looking at the BG, the sample BG1 is what that Mr. Nance prepared. The total construction cost was $21,304,418. That was with the alternates.
Okay.
We'll find
Sorry,
out.
wait,
This is the one.
right, that's what I'm looking at. He said
But
he
one
was
of them
looking
says
at
18.
BG1.
Oh, okay.
It's
Well, he.
I'm not finding that number on
His
the-
second page.
second page, top, number one,
Okay.
number one. Total construction cost.
I'll second that motion.
So a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Got where the numbers are coming from, Judy?
Okay.
They're big. I want to make sure everybody's okay. All right, ready to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie absent. Go pop some champagne, Mr. Rogers.
Pop a break right now.
Take a short break.
Yeah, board will have a 10-minute recess.
Are we going to continue the agenda in the order it's listed? Because I think our closed session people are here.
Yeah, they are. We need to figure out what to do when we come back from the recess. We can figure out. Item number 11, pay application number 6 of Performance Services Incorporated. Mr. Stump.
Pay application number 6 to Performance Services. Over the course of the month, we did get the boilers installed and running at Baker. All of our water conservation efforts have been completed as well. So we're almost 60% into the project, and the percentage matches pretty much the percentage of the request of the total project amount. So,
Any other discussion or questions?
If I could just emphasize what you just said, the percentages they've got listed on there as completed, you all looked at it and say,
We're
"Dadgummit,
certified."
I think this looks right.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
60%.
Quick question on energy project generally. Do we ever apply for any of these energy recognition things?
We are, we're doing that, we're working on
Okay.
Energy Star, high school just got Energy
Yeah.
Star, we're working on, we've
Okay.
got 4 more buildings that's
Okay, I
in
keep-
line for it now,
I keep
so.
seeing this in that energy
I know.
report, and I think, where are we?
And any rebates go back to your general fund too on lighting or
Right.
anything KU's they're providing as far as rebates.
And our energy usage per kilowatt, per square foot is less than most schools are getting the Energy Star recognition. But you just have to go a certain period of time with bills coming in before you qualify for them. So we're in line for those.
There's a couple more schools coming online for that star rating, just presumably.
If an architect sign off on it as well.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on item number 11? If not, a motion is in order to consider approval of pay application number 6 of Performance Services Incorporated for the District-wide Energy Project in the amount of $301,869.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Parrott. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Number 12 is consider approval of proposal for district marketing and public relations services. Mr. Stump.
Okay, as directed by the board, we did advertise, put out RFP for PR and marketing services to the public. That was published for about 15 days. We had 7 companies or entities inquire and request copies of our spec sheet. We only had 2 that actually submitted bids on the opening day, which are included in your packet. We had a bid from, let me get to the tab sheet, from Piper Public Relations for $4,000 per month or $100 per hour with an additional, possible additional add-on of $1,000 per month for social media management. And then the second bid was from Lida Arvin for $46,000 per year or $24 per hour. And you had an opportunity to read the proposal, so.
Can I add something here to this? As you all probably know, our community ed director is retiring at the end of this month. That's a position that I have not advertised for. I purposely didn't do that till this came up so I could give you the opportunity. If there's some way you want to talk about combining the community education person and some PR, that's going to open up about $75,000 to $80,000 to work with. I have not advertised that position yet, in case you had some interest in maybe talking about how we might could combine those. And
I would be interested in having that discussion.
then
So should we
I would
postpone
recommend,
this?
I would recommend that you table these tonight and not make a decision till we have that then.
Given that discussion, the motion be in order to table the proposal for district marketing and PR services.
I move that we table the proposal for district marketing and public relations services.
Motion to table by Ms. Hicks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Parra. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Okay. Mr. Nichols is ready to discuss item 13, which is bus fuel tank installation.
Yes, good evening. As my submittal suggests, we're at the point with Riley Oil. We've been working with Riley Oil. They've kind of put us on notice that our facility where we fuel our buses is getting a little older with a lot of repairs necessary. It's not going to happen in the next day or two, but we are experiencing some issues as we go to fuel up.
Is that the Main Street facility?
Yes.
Okay.
We have experienced some issues lately, but they promised this is not going to happen overnight. They do want to phase that facility out. And they've been working with us and prepared a proposal where they would actually come up with part of the installation cost of putting our own tanks on site, which would decrease the number of miles that we'd have to travel across town to fuel up our buses. And I think it's just good business to have that facility on site where we could monitor that and not extra wear and tear on our buses and board vehicles.
Is this something that you all solicited input or bids from other people on? Because, I mean, like Kentucky Petroleum Suppliers, do they put in facilities like this?
Well, Riley Oil approached us with this proposal, so we wanted to bring it to the board to get some direction. We can bid this out, obviously. We can buy our own equipment. We could do some of the work ourselves and bid out fuel only. Libby McCarty is here from Riley Oil tonight to explain what brought about this proposal. If you have a desire to speak with her, she's here and available to do so. But we bring it to you tonight, and I put discuss for possible approval on there so we could have this discussion and get some direction from the Board of Education.
If I recall correctly, the cost and the savings got about a 2-year payout, give or take. Is that in the right range?
Well, they're asking for a 2-year contract. If they help us install these tanks on our site, that would recoup some of their costs. I think it's $25,000 cost to them for the operating, pumping, monitoring system that goes on the tanks.
What happens after the 2 years?
They could, obviously, we bid out the fuel cost, and if they did not win the bid, they would come in and take their monitoring equipment and go on about their business, and we would have to install new monitoring equipment and pumping equipment for those tanks.
We own the tanks.
We own the tanks, that's correct.
So I guess what we were getting at is the savings are $24,886. So that's the savings component. The reason why we would do this.
That's if we, let's say they were to shut the site down. We would have to go to Roadrunner or some other facility.
That
would be an increase in cost.
Okay. Are they giving us any price differential on dispensing fuel if we had our facility here versus over on Main Street?
We get the same discounted rate, but we did not have the extra travel across town to fill up our buses.
Would they own the fuel? We don't buy the fuel. We only pay for fuel we use.
Okay, I thought they were proposing a differential on the fuel, so I'm glad to add about that. So, all right,
So
that's going to cost us $40,000.
That's correct.
And so the reason we would do it is, and what pays this back is
Not having to go across to Roadrunner and pay more per gallon for gas.
well, that assumes that they would not have the facility there.
That's correct.
And
That as
we
long
couldn't-
as
and we
the
couldn't
facility
use-
there,
and
it
and we
does
couldn't
away
find a
with-
facility from somebody else. If we, there's a lot of assumptions here, but if we assume we could find facilities from somebody else, let's call it Kentucky Petroleum or somebody else, then it gets back to, we wouldn't have to go over to Main Street to get the fuel, we get the fuel here. If y'all put a calculation as to what the man-hour savings would be there, if any?
There's a tremendous amount of savings of man hours and fuel usage, just driving the buses across town that wouldn't normally make that trip.
Real hard dollar man-hour savings, that we're actually gonna be paying people less money?
We
These are
haven't
bus
done the
drivers.
calculations, no.
No, they're doing that. It's included in, if it's a trip and they have to go over it. For me, it's also a safety issue of having some of our lady drivers that are out don't get in from trips till 11 or 12 o'clock and they have to go over to the other side of town, which is, it's kind of dark, it's not well lit, and they're out there by themselves at night, where we could, with this, we would have it on our grounds, well lit, videoed, everything like that.
And
So
there's
it's a
no
safety
issue with just being able to fill 2 buses at a time? There's not
That's all
going
we
to be a
fill
white
out,
line?
that's all we can fill out there.
There's 2 options here. There's a tank where there's a firewall that has to be built in between the tank and the buses, or we could go with a fire guard tank, which is a little bit more, but there would not be a brick wall there. We could actually put 2 buses on either side of the tank and do multiple buses filling at the same time with 22, 23 gallons per minute, which would not be affected. I think that was one of your questions.
Yes, it was. Yes, thank you.
And if I misspeak or have misspoken, please step in anytime.
Can I talk for a second?
Sure.
You asked a couple questions and I wanted to jump in. We built that site 20-something years ago and we use cards at that location. And that business has changed tremendously over time. And we have sites like that all around central Kentucky. Most of them are public, some are private facilities, and that's what I'm proposing here. And we've got a small city with one, we've got a rock quarry with one, we've got a concrete company, et cetera. But while we've decided that when this site dies, we're not going to rebuild, it's not a great location. Our cards can be used all over Winchester, from Speedway to Road Ranger, wherever. Most of our customers would transition well using our cards at those locations. You all are a different bird. Buses are not going to work well in, yeah, they're not. And they're big, they're bulky. They're going to hit things. They hit things at my site, so they're going to really hit things at a Speedway. So because I have joint ventures just like this and other type of places, I was like, you know what, I think that it would be something that you guys might want to consider, because over the years, I've been here several times over the last 5-6 years talking about a facility on site, and I had just done one recently at a concrete company. But we we're in this automated fueling business. We sell fleets. We've got salespeople out on the road. We've got a lady in our office. That's all she does. She's looking at our sites all day. People are calling in with card problems or whatever. That's what we do. So putting a site here is just an economy of scale for somebody like you all, because we're doing it all day long. Certainly you can bid it out with other people. Whether they do that or not, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But we're a local company that does it. But the way I always proposed it is that you guys would own the equipment that's attached to the ground, the tank, the concrete, so on and so forth. What I would own, what I would put there would be the dispenser, the card reader, the brains that when the driver slides the card, because it's going to be just like if they're at my site on Main Street right now. They slide their card, it goes up, it gets permission, comes back down, all the information comes to us. You get a bill that looks exactly the same as what you get currently. So that we split it up so that, because we talked, they didn't think that the board would go for a very long-term contract, because if I put all the money in, I would need a much longer contract. I said, well, if we split up like this, I could say, well, let's do this a 2-year contract with a couple of extensions, and if things went bad, that I could pick my equipment up and walk away if y'all decide, oh, I'm going to fire them, they're not good anymore. So that's how the division came and what we were thinking.
And then where does that leave us?
Oh, what do you mean?
If you were to take your...
Oh, I wouldn't leave unless you told me to.
Okay, so...
I don't leave. I want to sell you gas. I want to do your transaction data for you, yeah. But I'm just saying, if, they didn't want to sound, they said, well, a long-term contract doesn't work well with school boards. I said, okay, because some of these places I have a 20-year contract. So I was trying to think in terms of a couple of years.
We could have 5 different boards during that time.
That's why, it's because you'll have a different
more.
scenario. So that's why I thought, well, we could do it like this, and if it gave you an out. What it does, it gives you an out. If you decide, even though we've done business for a million years, if you decide, we don't like them anymore, whatever, they're not doing a good job, whatever, we're gonna fire you when this contract's up. Okay, but at least I can take the money that I've invested. I wouldn't get it all back, because a lot of that would be training and technology, et cetera, but I could take this and go use it at another location at least. It just gives you guys an out if you want to.
If we bid it out to someone else, then they would be responsible for bringing the card reader in.
Yeah, if you wanted to get rid of it for whatever reason. I'm just giving you an out so it doesn't make y'all think, oh my gosh, I have to be hooked up with these people forever.
So when do you think you will want to start phasing out the
Well, I kind of didn't really want to tell the whole world, but because we've had to bring it here, I've had to kind of tell the whole world that when it dies.
The whole world is right there.
Well, I know, but you know what I'm saying. Some of these school boards are on TV. I don't know.
Yeah, we're on TV right now.
Well, there you go.
We have drivers that have difficulty fueling today there. So, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, that's an issue. I'm well aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I was thinking of is that, there is another dispensary facility in town, Kentucky Petroleum, I think it is. They've got one next to the old Scotty's Market. Is that correct?
No, that closed.
They don't have that anymore?
Closed a long time ago. I think so. I think
I don't
closed.
think so.
Yeah. You don't think?
I don't think it's there.
Yeah, no, it hadn't been there for years.
And they may be they may have relocated them.
And maybe they relocated, but the one that was on Maple, we were on Maple, that one closed a long time ago.
Well, it seemed like it might at least be useful to see anybody else, you know,
Oh, Scotty's up on Maple?
yes.
But the fueling
On the
station
other side,
next to
there was
it.
a
is
fueling-
empty.
Yeah, no, that's
It's
gone.
empty.
To see if there's any interest in anybody else giving us an alternate proposal on it. That would be my perspective. Maybe we don't need to put an ad in the paper and go full board, you know, invite a lot of bids, but to see if anyone else wants to make a proposal, can we do that?
Well, this, the pricing part of this did not come from me, just so you know, I'm not making any money on that. I got a local company, PetroServe, and they're pretty much the only game in the state, this part of the state. They do all the projects pretty much for everybody, but they priced it. I have nothing to do with that part of it, the pricing part of it.
And we could potentially save a lot of money by doing the work
Yeah.
ourselves. Concrete pad, for example, we could pour that. We could construct the block wall. The fire marshal would obviously have to approve that block wall.
What about one of my questions asked about if any environmental permits were required, and the only other thing was that just the state fire marshal approval needed. Are there
The
no environmental?
Their environmental have eased up over time. I think when we looked at this a few years ago, there was a lot steeper environmental protection type.
Tanks have improved, double wall tanks.
Yeah, double wall tank or
Double wall
environmental
tanks have
tank.
come about, and that's improved
Okay.
A
there.
lot of changes.
So
So what we have
So
proposed
that's-
is within the legal.
Okay.
It's above ground, and it's a
Right.
double, you could see it, and, you know, but in the olden days, they were below ground and leaking, and you didn't know that, you know, yeah.
And our insurance, we would not see an increase in insurance by moving the tanks on the ground, except for whatever it costs us to insure the tank itself and the wall or anything like that that we
And the
build.
difference between the two tanks we're talking about, the block wall or not a block wall, is one costs $7,500 with a block wall, which you'd have to construct and labor with a block wall. The Fire Guard tank is $18,000, but you would not have to have a wall there, no permit, no firewall, no fire marshal inspection of the wall. So it's kind of a wash. If you go $7,500 for one tank and a wall, or go the $1,800 for the Fire Guard tank.
That's.
Is that part of the engineer fee that you mentioned?
The engineer?
That's the question, that's the one little question mark. It could end up being about the same, so that's the one, you don't know until you get into it.
Wall.
Mr. Stump, were you here when we had the underground tanks before?
I was not.
Okay. Were you, Gordon?
I was,
Seems like I remember.
Pardon?
I was,
Okay.
yeah.
How does the size of this tank compare to the size of those tanks?
I can't remember. I don't know, because you all own the tank. I don't
Because, and the
remember.
reason we took them out was because
Oh,
of
you had a leaking
capacity.
tank. We had a leaking tank.
Yes,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and they didn't put another one in because where it was and trying to put it in the same size.
Yeah.
And the capacity of the tank.
It probably, that was
Didn't-
20 years ago. It was probably 1,000 gallon, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Because, I mean, that was a long time ago. Y'all are a lot bigger now. I don't remember. I could probably find it, I don't know, because you own, I don't know. I could
I
probably
mean,
do
I was teaching then, I remember
Yeah.
when it was going on because I had to fill up at it when I drove a bus.
Oh.
Yeah, that was sometime. But it was, I thought part of the reason, once the leak started, they decided to disband the whole thing, and that's when we came to Fleet, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, this is for diesel only. If you was directing us to bid this out, then a bid would need to go out for gasoline and diesel, because we have a number of vehicles that use gasoline that we purchased through O'Reilly as well with cards, so it's not
Why would it?
mutually exclusive.
Well, I wasn't necessarily saying you should bid this out. My question, I also looked over to Mr. Elkins, is do you all have the ability to see if there's anyone else in town that could, you could say, hey, we're thinking about putting a tank in, can you all do the same thing Riley's doing? So we love Riley, but we ought to at least
And that's
go through the process
of
of.
as a discussion item or possible approval. I mean, Riley has brought this proposal to us and is willing to put $25,000 toward it, which provides us with a significant savings in the installation of the tanks.
So let me say this to you. This is spinning a little bit differently than I thought it was going to when I looked at it in the OneDrive. And so I didn't really see this as there any necessity to bid, since we weren't getting something from Riley Oil. We were buying a tank, putting it in, they were going to supply fuel to it. So I didn't really see that as a bid issue, it being less than $20,000. and I don't know what the relationship with Riley Oil is now or how we got into it. I think if we stay in it, nothing's required of us, but if we go out to the public shopping for a deal, then I think it needs to be competitively bid if it's gonna be for some expense greater than 20 grand, so.
Our expense on this is 40, right?
Well, but that's our expense.
Right.
For the tank.
You're not contracting, well, yes, she is asking you to initiate a 2-year contract.
And then, how does the pricing work on this? How do you all determine the price of diesel?
Well, that schematic that you looked at, that said, that was attached to the information you all were sent that had the pricing, does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Your Rack Plus.
Yeah, yeah. I charge you a rack plus. You just go a little tiny bit on how gasoline and diesel fuel pricing is done out there on the road. If you're driving down the road and you look at Roadrunner or whoever, that's called retail pricing, okay? Rack pricing is a cost plus. Most of the time, they're not even related, okay? So when you're on a cost plus, which is what you all been on forever, if it goes up, it goes up, it goes down, it goes down. So that schematic that I sent him, it shows what your pricing off your invoice that you all got in your somewhere here, what you were charged for the last year. Then I gave you the pricing on what it would have cost you if you'd bought it at Roadrunner diesel fuel. I just did diesel fuel because you don't buy that much gas. Because that's really all we're talking about is diesel fuel. So I compared what you all paid to what the Roadrunner diesel fuel price would have been for the past 12 months. And the average savings between the two was 18 cents a gallon. Multiplied times the number of gallons you purchased for the year, which was that 24,000 and some change savings. That if you just went out and purchased it with your federal tax, you don't pay federal tax, you've got taken off, that's the difference. So that's what you, by paying a cost plus pricing.
But your cost plus pricing, your amount that you're charging above cost, I'm not sure we should be discussing exactly what that is at this point in time. Let's say it's
Particularly if you're gonna bid it.
Yes.
It's a very good price. I'm giving you a
But-
price that I give the state. It's a good price. I'll say that. Yeah.
So that price differential, that markup, let's call it, on that, the cost plus part, that's what potentially we could get as a different, somebody else could say, well, I'll do it for this amount.
That's correct.
And that's the component
right.
that we would be either soliciting proposals for
Well, that
or
and.
bid
And
out.
the $25,000
And
that they're putting.
and the equipment.
Right.
And the fact that they're going to manage your transactions for you. They're gonna, so you've got the card reader there, and whoever's putting the diesel fuel in, your drivers are sliding their card all day long. They're collecting the data, and then they're spitting back out, because our cards would work at your location and anywhere else if you have somebody that's gone out to, a basketball tournament somewhere or whatever, or your gasoline vehicles, and it's all on one. So that's what that's what you would be bidding.
And so potentially one conclusion we could come to is, we've had a long relationship with Riley. They've done a good job for us. We could go down this path and take care of that facility right here, knowing 2 years from now, we might bid the thing out and see if there's, if somebody else wants to come in at cost plus a wee bit less or something like that. I mean, again, we're not talking about a 20-year contract, and we might have other more important fish to fry at this point in time. Without, but.
And I can provide references for people we've done this exact same deal for. I mean, we do have a long relationship with good places that we spent money, and, if you all like to talk to people, but it's something that we do. There are all different kinds of companies out there, and these oil companies, some people do some things well, some do others well. One of the things that we do well is we do these card locks and these card management and fleet management. That's because it's a niche. Not everybody does it, and
So we're not only getting significant savings on fuel costs.
I can pat myself on the back, because we do some things not very well, but this is one thing we do well.
But they're also providing the 25,000 toward the initial equipment. But again, potentially in 2 years, they could pick it up and take it, but it's a $25,000 expense. We don't have to incur that.
Which one of the permutations of designs and options that my computer's gone out of juice are you all recommending, whether the wall, the not wall?
I would go with the fire guard. That would eliminate the wall, that would eliminate the fire marshal permit. It's a fire guard.
Well, permit of the wall.
Permit of the wall, that's
Yeah.
right. Which could mean an architect fee
Yeah.
to design a wall, which is previously round number $5,000.
Yeah, I would do the fire guard, but,
Move your 40 to about 50.
just
So
take away a lot of problems in the future.
But like I said, we could save some money by doing some of this in-house, for the concrete pad, and obviously we would want to save as much as possible. So maybe a motion not to exceed a certain amount, almost go forward with it.
Question for you, Mr. Elkins.
Yes, sir.
By having diesel fuel tanks on the property, does that increase our liability in any way?
Well, I think, the only way to answer that question is it within foreseeability that somebody could be injured, that somebody could get burned, that there could be an environmental leak? I think certainly the only answer is yes, it could increase our liability. Something has to occur. I think you manage that with insurance. I really think that's where it is. And Mr. Christie has suggested that premium wouldn't change. I assume you got that from your underwriter.
Yeah.
Carrier. So yeah, it gives you extra opportunity to be exposed to liability, and that you've got a volatile fluid on your property. I don't think it changed anything with respect to your bus drivers, because they're fueling elsewhere anyway.
Right.
So
Or your
I
buses, for
think
that
that-
matter.
Yeah, I think there's extra opportunity there, but I think you're taking care of that with the insurance court and Mr. Christie, so.
Okay.
What do surrounding districts do, like Montgomery County, Madison County?
Some have it, that's different ways, some have it on site, some, I think most have gone to above ground. I don't know of very many, there may be some, but I'm not, most of them are above ground now.
Do you all handle Madison County?
We provide Madison County their fuel. They have an in-house system, meaning they would hire somebody to manage it. Because, like, if you bought your own system and you bought your own bill, to manage the data, you would have to hire somebody in-house to do something with all those transactions, all those card swipes.
Do you know what Montgomery County does?
Montgomery County, because we fuel them some, they have a system, I'm not really sure, they have fueling, I don't think, they don't have a card system, I don't think. They have fueling, but they do a bid every month, so on their fuel.
County's got the tanks, but they don't have a system.
No,
Drivers just, they're just
Fayette
not.
County uses our sites, so they do a kind of a quasi thing. They have some tanks on, road over there.
Liberty?
Yeah, there, but they also use our location, so we get probably 3/4 of their product at our location, which is a good thing. Yeah, they use, meaning they use our cars.
What's the provision for gas, not
Well, the
diesel
reason we
here?
decided that I did not propose to put a gas tank is because y'all don't use very much gas, and it just doesn't pay out, it doesn't make sense.
So
It's just
where do we get gas now?
like at Road Runner or what, because our cards, your cards would work here at your location, and only your cards would work here, nobody else could come in and use their card. But they could also go over to Road Runner, those people who have gas cards, because it's not that many gallons a month, but it all comes together, if they get their bill, it all comes together.
We track how much,
Yeah.
so if
It's right.
anybody goes over, it shows if somebody's,
We control these cards, like the time of day, when they fuel, how many times a day they fuel, which product they put in which vehicle, so mistakes and any type of, anything out of parameters can be caught.
A card is assigned to a vehicle.
You know, pump 30 gallons in a 25-gallon tank.
Yeah.
But are we legal to accept this tonight without bidding, given the amounts involved?
I think if you're gonna spend more than $20,000 and you're gonna enter into a new purchase agreement with somebody, I think you have to competitively bid it. Now, I don't know what your existing situation is, so as to say that you could just go continue to do what you're doing. Maybe that's the route to take, because I don't know how you got into it. I wasn't present, didn't see any of it.
We are not currently under any contract.
No.
We'd have to be under a contract to move forward this, because since it's a 2-year deal, we'd have to have a deal to be a 2-year deal, right?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You all want to do a 2-year
I would
two-year
like
deal
to
on
have-
it.
I would like to have, because I'm gonna spend,
Right.
considerable amount of
It only
money.
makes sense.
I would just like some type of contract with you guys saying, yeah, we're gonna hang with you for 2 years, and then we'll review it in 2 years and make sure everybody's all happy, it's all good. That, just because of the amount of money that I'm spending.
And they'd also be responsible for any upkeep or damage to the equipment that belongs to them.
That's right, my equipment.
If the car reader went down, it's their down.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we develop what is the process if we indeed have to bid it? What are, who writes that RFP to get not only their bid, but others that might wish to bid, given?
We would design that out of our office.
Okay. So is that the next step we need to take?
Again, I think the limit's $20,000. I don't know what's being suggested here in terms of money, but if it's more than $20,000, if you're gonna enter into a new agreement, I think it has to be bid.
Yeah, our out-of-pocket's gonna be somewhere between 40 or 50, depending on what option.
I think O'Reilly's okay with that, they're gonna be a very competitive bid. We're all right there.
Again, we were just looking for direction from the board of which direction you wanted to go. And certainly bidding this out is a viable option.
Okay.
If we went down that path, would it be difficult for you, Mr. Christie, to just get a short little letter from the insurance company saying it's all good? That there wouldn't be
Yeah.
any?
I don't wanna see that.
That would close that circle.
The only thing that Chris from Winchester Insurance mentioned today was be the property value of the tank that we own.
Oh.
It would increase that much.
Right.
Because we have to insure the property.
So I guess-
But it would not increase the
The liability
liability portion of that, but I can get a statement we can get a statement from them saying that.
Well, maybe not from the agent, but from the company.
Okay. So we wanna make a motion to, let's just assume.
I move that we advertise for an RFP with the scope and details to be determined by folks who know what they're doing.
I'll suggest the language would be that the district issue an RFP for purposes of satisfying the district's diesel fuel needs, which may include a on-site tank.
And bring that back next
Could be
month.
all your fueling needs,
Yeah.
because it needs to be the gas too. They need to-
Yes, okay. Okay, so motion by Ms. Hicks, second? I worded it, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. All right. Next up, our internal board business, consider approval of allocation of junior achievement in the amount of $2,500.
Is this in our budget?
I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, because the amount has not changed. in-
Okay, I move that we approve the allocation to junior achievement in the amount of $2,500.
Motion by Ms. Hicks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pereira. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone want to have anything heard off the consent agenda separately?
I'd like to do the contingency budget report separately, but the person's gone.
I was going to say, yeah, so,
But I think we need to have a discussion.
yeah, I think there's been some confusion about the way the contingency budget report is being issued. And that's probably my fault because I made an executive decision as board chair and I probably should have sought your support. So we need to, that's something that, maybe we can add that for a future agenda.
Maybe when we do the quarterly review.
Yeah, because we didn't have the quarterly review on this and those two items dovetail, so.
And certainly I was also involved with it, and I guess from my standpoint, I thought it was making life simpler, but.
And it doesn't matter to us which way. It doesn't make a nickel's worth of difference to us which way we do it. So that's your all's call.
Okay.
Do you want to discuss, Mrs. Hicks, whether you'd like to bring back the balance sheet that we used to have, the sort of a typewritten thing?
I was told in an email that it was discontinued.
Yeah, same decision. We decided, I mean, that's something I think that was important when the district barely had enough money to cover its funds. But if you look at that cash flow report, I mean, even now in October, which is a thin month, we don't have that worry. So we could put it back if you want, but I think that was one thing Alicia was doing every month. That
Any
we were.
board decision about discontinuing it, so.
There wasn't, that was something that the chair decided, so.
Okay. Yeah, but I would like to have some discussion
We'll
about
have
the
it on the next
contingency
agenda.
report.
So we'll put that on the next agenda. Okay. All right, any other discussion on any consent agenda items? If not, a motion is in order to approve or acknowledge all the following. Item 15, consider approval of GRC High School Marching Band to participate in Bands of America Regional, October 21 through 22, 2017 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Item 16, consider approval of GRC High School Marching Band to participate in Mid-States Championships November 4, 2017 in Mason, Ohio. Item 17, consider approval of GRC Boys Basketball Team to participate in KHSA Sweet 16 pending qualifications in Lexington, Kentucky, March 14 through 18, 2018. 18 is consider approval of GRC Basketball Team to participate in KHSAA Sweet 16 pending qualification in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Is that Northern Kentucky or Bowling Green this year?
It should be Florence.
All right. Florence, Kentucky, March 14th through 18, 2018. Item 19, acknowledge school fundraiser requests. Item 20, acknowledge SPDM minutes. Item 21, acknowledge community eligibility program report. Item 22, approval of employee leaves of absence. Item 23, acknowledge a notice of personnel action report. Item 24, acknowledge monthly energy report. Item 25, acknowledge booster/support club agreements for 2017-2018. Item 26, acknowledge the Clark County Clerk's motor vehicle tax report. Item 27, acknowledge the Clark County Sheriff's report. Item 28, acknowledge monthly financial report. Item 29, acknowledge general fund budget summary report. Item 30, acknowledge a contingency budget report. And item 31, acknowledge a balance sheet report. A motion is in order to approve or acknowledge all of those items.
I move that we approve or acknowledge items 15 through 31 as presented.
Motion by Ms. Hicks. Second. Second by Mr. Parrott. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. A motion is in order to authorize payment of salaries and accounts payable.
I move we pay salaries and accounts payable.
Motion by Ms. Hicks. Second. Second by Mr. Parrott. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie excused. Motion is in order to return to closed session for disciplinary hearings per KRS 61.810, subsection 1, subsection F. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee, member, or student. And 61.810, subsection 1, subsection C. Discussion of proposed and pending litigation against or on behalf of the public agency.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0, with Ms. Ritchie excused, and the board's in closed session at 10:07 p.m.
I will do parent disciplinary hearing first.